don't you close your eyes? Who did not run out of time? Who had enough time? So if you had enough time, raise your hand on this on the reading section on Saturday. Okay, good. Okay, you can open your eyes. Okay, so pretty much everyone. That's pretty much everyone who didn't have enough time. Okay. So for this test, if you did not have enough time, which is pretty much all of you, it's a science problem. How you deal with science passages. It's not about the history passages. Ideally, what should happen is you should finish. Okay, so literature. So the first literature passage plus the 3 sciences. I'm including the social sciences. This should ideally take 45 minutes. And you should have 15 minutes left to do your history passage. That's how it should be. No, you shouldn't have 10 minutes left. You shouldn't spend 55 minutes here. Okay, and I'm not saying you should. What is it? Get any that's including you not getting any questions wrong. Preferably, I mean, if you're going to, I mean, usually, what you should aim for, ultimately, possibly there's gonna be this one tricky literature passage. You can't really control that, okay? Like, I mean, if you can get it right, fine. But if you can't, yeah, there's nothing you can do. I mean, like, it really has to do with your flexibility of how to deal with novel situations and make novel inferences. It's usually about the purpose. Okay, so if you get that purpose question wrong, you don't want to get any easy science questions wrong. If you're gonna get one wrong, 1 or 2 wrong, you want to get something, some of the harder questions wrong, and then 2 or 3 in the history. If it's hard. Right? Then you should have usually statistically speaking, if you get 1 wrong on the reading section, that's -6 points. Okay? So if you get 2 wrong, that's usually so like -12 and something like that. I know there's no such score as I know you can't get like a 394 or whatever. So you're in this case you would get a 390. In this case also though, you would get a 390. So statistically that's what happens. If you get 1 wrong, it's 390. If you get 2 wrong, 390, and so on. You can do the calculation. But for writing statistically, you should be thinking about, I mean, it's -1 equals -10, but nowadays it's the curve is even more steep, so potentially you can get more questions wrong. Anyway, so I'm gonna start by looking at the first passage. So if you did, when you're reading when we're doing literature passages, your goal should be to not go back to the passage so often. Okay, I mean, I wasn't here to see you guys do the test, but if you were doing a lot of this when you're solving the questions, no, that's, well, number 1, that's wasting time, and number 2, that's trapping yourself if you do that. So let's take a look at this literature passage. Let's see how we should deal with this. Okay, this passage was. Who thought this was, okay, why don't you close your eyes again since you guys don't raise your, okay, On a scale of 1 to 5, how hard do you think this was? 1? Who thought it was a 1? Who thought it was a 2? 3, 4, 5. Okay, so everybody thought it was okay. Okay, so let's take a look. Okay, we'll go through it quickly, but I do want to go over some methodologies here. So just think of it as an exercise. We're using this passage as a tool. It's not that we're learning about this passage. We're using this passage, okay? So here's our first character, right? Naomi, an 11-year-old on a school break, is visiting the narrator. Oh, so this one's interesting because we have the narrator as a character also, okay? Naomi and the narrator, family friend from Ethiopia at the store he manages. Okay, so the narrator manages a store, and this is a kid, right? They have made a plan to read the novel. Okay, so they're reading a novel, right? All right, so let's take a look. So this is the narrator talking, right? You should tell. This is the store owner, the narrator. Okay, so let's see. We'll just call this person I, since we can't call them both N. Okay, so I read 40 or 50 pages that first day. Naomi read none. Okay, so what do you mean? Okay, so I know it said in the prologue they plan to read this novel together, but this could mean two things, right? It could mean one book and they're both reading the same book, or they could be reading on their own, like next to each other, right? So I don't know about that though. So don't make any guesses, right? You should have thought about those possibilities, okay? After I read the first page, I waited for her to pick up where I left off. Oh, okay. So they're looking at the same book, right? So now I know, right? It's like he reads the first page, she reads the second. I don't know if it's a he or a she, but anyway, the narrator reading the first page and then she reading the next one, something like that. And then it says, but she insisted in a voice that bordered on pleading that I continue. Okay, so this is our first plot, right? So what happened? They're reading, but Naomi said, I don't want to read, you read. Okay. One more, she said at first. Okay, so that's just going along with their plot, so I don't care. And when that page had been completed, she add another one more. Okay, so I can include this in her plot one. So she's just doing this over and over again, right? Until there were so many pleases and pretty pleases and come on pleases that I was utterly left defenseless. So I can just choose some key words here and I can just link this to our first plot, right? So if I have these three words, I feel like I can get a good visual understanding of the first plot. So this is what I want to do, okay? So I continue read, and she said, oh, you should continue reading, oh, and another, and then she says, please, please, please read, right? So this first paragraph, it's just that first plot. And I have that. Okay, so I just want to do that, right? So they were reading together, and she said, I have these. Like, please, and then another. All right, so let's take a look. I looked up every couple of pages to see if Naomi was still paying attention, and of course she was. Okay, so how am I going to take this in? This is going to be my characterization for Naomi, right? Paying attention, okay? So if you didn't do that, you're not implementing the methodology. Every time you read a sentence, the first thing you should ask yourself is this a plot or characterization? And if it's either, you should annotate it. If you're not doing that, you're not looking carefully, okay? You're not reading this as much as you're annotating it, and you're trying to delineate between different points and different plot points, different characterizations. So that should be your focus. Okay, so this is Naomi's characterization. Her attention, in fact, never seemed to waver. Okay, so that's good because that goes along with our characterization, right? Her attention does not waver. she's paying attention. I felt her staring at me sometimes when my eyes were focused on the page, and I realized she was taking it all in. Okay, still the same, right? And not just the words, but me and the scene that we had created together. Okay, so this is kind of different. This is Naomi looking at the quote-unquote scene, right? She was taking in the scene, right? So what does this mean? She was in the moment, I guess, right? Just enjoying that moment, enjoying that experience. I tried not to notice too much, to simply just live. Okay, so live and notice is used in a contrast, right? So if you're wondering what live means, this should be your reference point, right? So instead of noticing much, just live, right? So what is that? Like just being in the moment, not actually thinking about it, not actually noticing it, but just being. That's probably what it means when it says live. You could potentially get a vocabulary and context question for words like these, right? So it's not used in the traditional sense, but you have a word that's in a contrast relationship, okay? But that was impossible. Every time I looked at her, I became, okay, what are you doing? Hey. What are you doing? But every time I looked at her, I became aware of just how seemingly perfect this time was. Okay, so I was looking at this scene also, right? This time, and saying, okay, this is good, right? I thought about how years from now I would remember this with the crushing, heartbreaking nostalgia. Okay. So, I mean, this is kind of weird because he's kind of predicting what would happen in the future. So it's not exactly how he feels about it right now, but it's how he feels like he's going to feel about it later on, right? Because of course I knew even then that I would eventually find myself standing here alone. So this would be talking mostly about the future, right? So he's reflecting on this time, but at the same time, he's thinking about how he would reflect back on this time in the future. So in the future, he would say, oh, I missed that. I mean, we don't know if that's true, but that's his guess right now. And just as that knowledge would threaten to destroy the scene, okay, so what's that? What does that knowledge refer to? Yeah.
That thought of the heartbreaking nostalgia.
Yeah, and that prediction is also right. Okay, so here, well, I just want to do Naomi's characterization. She concentration, I guess I can say something like this, right? Her attention never seemed to waver, and she was also looking at the moment. I'm kind of paraphrasing here. She's taking in this moment, and I had two things, right? So right now, this time was now. Right now, how I feel about it is that this time is perfect. But I'm kind of guessing how in the future I would also look back. I mean, I'm going to look back, but in that time, I'm going to feel nostalgia. Okay. And just as that knowledge would threaten to destroy the scene. So, you know, that thought of me being, oh, okay, I'm eventually going to be alone. I'm eventually going to miss this. That's affecting his being in the moment. Naomi would do something small, like turn the page too early or shift in her chair, and I would be happy once again. Okay, so I mean, strictly speaking, I would see this as some kind of cause and effect, right? Naomi doing something, and then this person would be happy again, right? I mean, you don't have to do this, but it just feels, I mean, it's easier for me if it's easier for me to remember this if I do it this way. Right? I had more customers then. Okay, so this I would characterize, this I would see as characterization. Okay, so because this is some more information about me as a person, right? About the store owner, except him being a store, I don't know if it's a him or her, but except this person being a store owner, this person had more customers. Well, okay, so it's a comparison, so I guess compared to right now, right? So it's something back then. I had more customers then, and I treated each interruption to our reading as an assault on my privacy. Okay, so what's his characterization here? He did not want to get interrupted. So how should I do this? Like, did not like an interruption, right? Something like that. This is how he viewed the interruption, right? I mean, just find out a creative way to annotate it. Like instead of you writing everything down here, you can just pick keywords and use arrows, that kind of thing, right? So I look at this interruption and say, no, that shouldn't happen, right? When someone I didn't know entered the store, Naomi would mark where I had left off so that I could keep my eyes on the person wandering around the aisles. Okay, so this is something that happens. This is usually what happens when someone else comes in the store and someone interrupts, quote unquote, interrupts. She would take the book out of my hand, put her finger on the exact word or sentence that I had just concluded and hold it there until I returned. Okay. I kept one man. Okay, so why is he talking about one man in particular? I guess he's trying to make a specific point, right? I mean, the narrator already talked about some general occurrences. So, I mean, why bother mentioning this one specific instance? I don't know, okay? And that's what you should focus on. Kept one man who came to the counter with a single roll of toilet paper under his arm. Yeah, why so specific? Why does this even matter, right? Waiting for more than a minute while I finished reading a page I had just started. Okay, so he made him wait. Okay, I think this is what he's trying to say. At first, so there's a before and after here, right? So at first he smiled and was charmed, right? I can see already what's gonna happen, since it's a before and after. He's saying, oh, okay, so at first he smiled, but then he got upset, something like that. Charm wore off when I refused to acknowledge him. He responded by slamming and storming out. Okay, slam and storm out, right? So this is the after, right? So when you're reading this, you should think to yourself, okay, why in the world would he mention this? It's just a testament to how much this narrator thought of these kinds of interruptions as an assault on his privacy. He did not like customers coming in when he was reading with Naomi. Okay, that's pretty simple. I slipped into the characters as I read. Okay, I slipped, what in the world does this mean? So you should ask yourself, okay, slipped into the characters. I mean, it can mean a lot, it can mean multiple things. I mean, not a lot, but it can mean a few things. It means possibly he felt like them, really? Like something like if the characters are feeling sad, the narrator's also feeling sad, something like that. Or maybe something else. I slipped into the characters as I read. So you shouldn't make up your mind here. If you do make up your mind, you will get that question wrong. Remember about horses and skin? Girls who care about horses and skin, right? Don't make any guesses. You need a specific reference point. Slipped into the characters as I read. I grumbled and bellowed, slammed my fist onto the counter. Okay, so certain action, but and threw my arms wide open. Huh. Okay, so we all know now that we've read this entire passage that some of you maybe not. Okay, if you don't feel too bad. But is he angry? I mean, that's one possible interpretation when you read up to this sentence, right? You could think, okay, maybe he's angry. Maybe one of the characters were angry and now he's angry also. You could guess, but like I don't know what it means. I knew this was exactly what my father would have done. Wow, now it's making things a little bit more complicated. My father would have done, had he been the one reading. He would have made the story and event as grand and real as life. Oh, okay. So I think I know what it means now. So his father, when he was reading a story, he would making it event and making it real. Make it real. That's what his father would do. Don't know exactly what that means either, but I can get a sense of that, right? So kind of not just plainly reading the book, but putting life into it, I guess, and using all these actions and that kind of thing. He must have told me hundreds, perhaps thousands of stories, not just at night, but throughout the course of any day. Okay, so a lot of stories. So I'm just going to do this, right? So the father's first characterization, make the story real, right? Second one, a lot of stories, right? So real and quantity. But throughout the course of any given day, over breakfast, during lunch, in the middle, okay, I don't care. Been carrying on with my mother or friends. So, like any time, right? Quantity, a lot, and any time. There was no wrong time. Okay, there we go. Pretty easy. With him, or if there was, he didn't live along for me to see it. Okay, so let's go. The stories invented himself. Okay. Stories he invented himself, he told with particular delight. They all began, okay, what do they refer to? The stories he invented all began the same way. Okay, so this now you need to see as a characterization. Okay, this is not a characterization. I mean, I guess it's a subcategory of his father's characterization, but strictly speaking, this is about the stories, right? The stories all began the same way, with the same lighthearted tone, with the small wave of the hand, as if the world were being brushed to the side, which I suppose for him it actually was. And then he says, that reminds me. Okay, so this is just this particular instance again, right? Right now, are we talking about particular instances in this story? Not really. Okay, I mean, yeah, I guess when we talked about that one man who visited the store for toilet paper, that was a particular instance, but we didn't talk about any particular instances. We were just talking about some general regular occurrences. So, but what about here? This is something that's particular. Okay, so what should you think when you're reading this? You should think, okay, so this is just an elaboration on that general point made earlier. Okay, you're not thinking to yourself, oh, you read the story and think, oh, this is a ridiculous story. No, that's not what you should think. You should not make your own inference. Okay, the story dictates how it's going to use that supporting information. Okay, so yeah, let's go to the next part, and then it says, if I had heard the story before, I let him tell it to me again. His performance was that good. Okay, so this is me looking at my father. This is that kind of characterization, right? The narrator's opinion on his or her father, and obviously it's good, right? So looked at it in a good light. When FK spoke, okay, so we know from the prologue that this is the book that they're reading, character from the book, right? I waved my hands wildly in the air. I grumbled in a deep baritone and tried as hard as I could to do my father proud. Oh, okay. So this is what impacted him, right? He or she, the narrator, was impressed by his or her father, right? And kind of doing what he was doing. Right? So kind of a similar thing going on here. And then it says, "Ow, ye fools," I shouted out, and Naomi smiled in delight. Naomi found each of the characters as real as anyone she met in the street. Okay, so this is another characterization for Naomi. Naomi looking at the characters, and she's thinking, okay, they're real, right? Oh, I hate him. She would cry out after a particularly cruel antic on the part of the elder K. Okay, so what is this? This is also supporting this characterization above, right? When it came to A, though, the youngest and blah, 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 she was willing to fall completely in love. This is also supporting this, right? So this is the general point that's made here. Naomi looking at the characters and she thinks it's real. If you're trying to annotate like, oh, you know, she doesn't like K and not K, the elder K, but she liked A. No, that's a little bit too specific. It's just Naomi looking at the characters, her finding it real. Okay, so we have a lot. So you might feel like you have a lot to annotate, and yeah, you should annotate a lot. But that doesn't mean you need to hold it all in your head. And that shouldn't slow you down. You're just annotating stuff later for you to pick up. Right? It's just a note to your future self. I'm not saying you should remember all of these. Right? It's just you scribbling it down. Okay? So, I mean, some of you say, if I do it your way, it takes too much time. No, that's nonsense. Like circling this and making an arrow, that takes too much time. That doesn't make any sense. Okay? Like these are the stuff that I'm talking about. Okay? Okay, so why don't we take a look at number 1? I feel like number 1 is actually pretty hard. Okay? Okay, why don't you close your eyes for a second? Who chose A? Who chose B? Chose C? D? All right, so, okay, open your eyes. Let's take a look. An anecdote about an amusing event. Does this work? Okay, so who did not choose A? Someone who didn't choose A. Why? Okay, can you say this is true? An anecdote about an amusing event. Is this true? So what you need to think here is you need to assume that this is the answer. And you're trying to fit in your knowledge into this frame, right? So you're trying to make this an answer. You're not trying to eliminate it. You should try to make this an answer. That should be your mindset, okay? So if you were trying to make this okay, what would that amusing event be? That amusing event would be the narrator and Naomi reading. Let's try this, right? Let's say that Naomi and the narrator reading is an amusing event. So some of you might, okay, if you think that's not amusing, if you think that's not amusing, 괜찮아요? If you think that's not amusing, that's not the right way to look at it. Okay? It's not up for you to say. Okay? You can't deny this. If you just say an amusing event is Naomi and the narrator reading, it's fine. Anecdote about that. Yeah, I mean, you could say that, right? It was an anecdote about that. So if you cross this off, you got it wrong too. Okay? You're looking at the passage in a wrong perspective. So this one is okay. Right? So, and then let's take a look. To a recollection of similar events. All right, so then what would these similar events be? I can't hear you. What? Can't hear you. Yeah.
The narrator's father.
Okay, let's think about that. Narrator's father's reading to him or her. Okay? All right. How many do we need? More than one. Okay? So we need 2 or more specific instances since it said a recollection. Right? So, did we ever see the narrator's father reading to the narrator? What did we have? What was the one instance that we had? The narrator's father telling that in my words, the ridiculous story, right? it was a story that his or her father made up, right? It's not from a book, right? Then do we cross this answer out? No, we don't. Then we change this. Then we change this amusing event into the narrator performing. Okay? We try to make this work. That's how you should look at it. This is extremely important, okay? You're not going to get this question right unless you are able to do this, okay? So you should then change it. Now, we're not doing the reading thing because it wouldn't work here. But what about if it's about the narrator performing something in front of Naomi? Does that work? Does that work? Who says it works? Okay, then tell me the similar events. Okay, you don't have any. There's only, I mean, we didn't talk about any specific events actually, if you think about it, okay? It's you can get confused. If you go back, if someone asks you, okay, tell me what happened. What exactly happened? Because that's what a recollection of an event means, right? It's a story, like a particular instance of what happened. Like a recollection of an event would be something like that person visiting for toilet paper, right? This is a particular event, right? This is a particular event. What about for the father? Is there a particular event? No, it's just his characterization, right? This is what usually he did. And this is just one of the stories that he told. Do you know what happened? You don't, okay? Still, if I heard the story before, I let him tell it to me again. That's something that would regularly happen. It's not a recollection of an event. Even more so, plural, you can't, I mean, it's multiple. So this is not the answer. Okay. What about B? An account of the early stages of a friendship. Okay. Yeah, I mean, forgive it. Okay. Say this is okay. Okay. Say this is okay. Can you deny it? I mean, strictly speaking, yeah, but it would require too much effort. Like it's crossing too many lines. It's like you making too many logical leaps. You can ask me, okay, how do you know if it's an early stage? Well, was there a later stage? I mean, you don't know about that. I mean, if it's, I mean, I know it's not mentioned, but don't take any risks. Okay, so just look at it. An account of the early stages of a friendship to a foreshadowing of that friendship's ultimate demise. This, of course, was not there, right? I mean, and it's talking about a shift. So this is pretty, I mean, if this were to be the answer, it would be pretty early on in this passage when the narrator says, oh, I would be left all alone, that kind of thing. And I would look back on this with heartbreaking nostalgia, that kind of thing. But, you know, that doesn't cover the latter part of the passage at all, since that happens towards the very beginning. I mean, towards, not the very beginning, but in the beginning stages. A description of an emotionally significant activity. Yeah, of course this is emotionally significant to him, right? This is probably then the narrator reading to Naomi. Right? To a reflection on the narrator's experiences with that activity. Okay, so now I need to adjust. Say it's not necessarily reading, it's more so performing, right? So narrator, a description of an emotionally significant activity being Naomi, I mean the narrator performing in front of Naomi and the father, right? His experiences with his father. Okay, who chose A? For number 7? Okay. Father influenced him by. Okay. It's a reasonably be inferred, so you can make a little bit of logical jump. Okay. You can make a little bit of logical jump, but not so much. It needs to be reasonable. Okay. So what did his father do? His or her father do? Just told stories anytime, right? You should refer back and like, okay, a lot of stories anytime, and he would make it real, that kind of thing. Those are the things that you should remember. And based on, okay, so I mean, he made the stories real, right? He told a lot of them, and anytime, right? Because he said there was no wrong time for him. Creating an environment that encouraged young people to express themselves. How do you know? Maybe he told them to shut up. Shut up, I'm gonna tell my story. That goes along with what I have here. How do you know? Well, that's what you think. It's only one possible explanation. Maybe, do you know what I mean? Okay? I mean, it's not a joke, by the way. That's how you should think. Okay? I mean, him saying shut up does not contradict with what we have. If we say this is what we have and this is what we have, do A and B contradict one another? No, it goes along, right? So it's okay, right? So this is not the answer. B, emphasizing what was most important in a life well lived. Maybe he wanted to kill himself, right? That's why he told all these stories. He didn't like life at all. Providing a model for the dramatic recounting of a story. Yes, he did. Because why? Because we had that part where after we recount his father, it says right here, his performance was that good, his love of a story that obvious. Okay, so we know how obviously the narrator looked at his father in a very positive light, and then it said, and then we snap back to the present where he tells the story, and we see that the narrator is imitating, not imitating, but he's performing like his or her father, right? So it's okay. So C is the right answer. Exposing the narrator to a number of classic novels. Okay, maybe he didn't read any classic novels. Maybe he just told stories of his own and read trashy novels, not the classy novels. I don't know. The passage indicates that the narrator's father viewed storytelling as something that, okay, so how does the father view storytelling? Okay, so we only have a few options here. Okay, so I feel like this is gonna answer them. This should answer them. Okay, a long-standing family tradition. Did anybody choose this? Okay, that's outrageous. I mean, this is all we have. Okay, B, provided a means of bringing historical events. Did someone choose this? B. Yeah, I mean, we never talked about historical events, right? Help children to distinguish good choices from bad ones. Anybody choose this? Okay. Yeah. Everyday life corresponds to this one, anytime, right? There was no wrong time for his father. Okay. Okay, so any questions on the first passage? Okay, so today we're gonna look at the first, second, third, and fourth passage. I don't know if we're gonna have time for the fifth, but let's take a look at the second passage. You don't want to spend too much time here. You don't want to spend too much time here. Come on. Honestly, you guys spend way too much time here. I was told. But you shouldn't spend too much time on the second passage, especially the second passage. Okay? I mean, you might feel good about yourself because you're understanding everything and the language is easy, but suppress that urge, okay? Don't have fun here. Don't have fun. Okay? I know you guys don't have fun, but don't read. You're not here to read this. You're not having fun. You're not reading a magazine. Okay? You're just distilling the what do we need to even look at? The process, result, significance, that kind of thing, right? And that's it, basically. And you just check out, right? What if you don't remember it? Fine. Don't try to remember it. Like, if you don't understand a sentence, just say, okay, so there's a cause and effect here, and then move on, right? Don't dwell on that sentence and read it again and again until you understand it. Just move on, okay? You don't have any time. Tell yourself you need to solve the questions within read the passage and solve the questions within 6 minutes, okay? I mean, just on test day, I know, like, when you're practicing, yeah, you should go towards that direction. But anyway, okay, so let's take a look. Perhaps the first experiments ever conducted, okay, so the first experiment, so just suggest that, okay, so very, very easy beginning, right? We have an experiment, gives us a significance, so this is probably key to our understanding. Humans are often faster and stronger when they test their speed and strength in the company of other people rather than alone. So it's alone versus company, right? Alone versus company, and what? Company is stronger and faster. That's it, right? So this is what you should do, and you should move on, right? This is, you distilled everything here, right? Okay, so, but you should tell yourself consciously this. So in the very beginning, why would it give us like a significance? So we have one or two options here, okay? Since something can happen like this, okay? So we talked about this before. So we already have a result, like a clean-cut result. What can we do with this? Well, first of all, we can dedicate the entire passage to how we got to this conclusion, right? Simple as that. The entire passage explaining how we got to that conclusion. That would be way too easy, but it does happen from time to time. What's our other option? So we can dedicate a portion of this explaining how we got to this conclusion, and we take an unexpected turn here, okay? Talk about, I don't know, why is this the case? But why does this happen? You can do that, right? It's okay. You can go in any direction. You can say, okay, yeah, you perform better in the company of others, but why? And then now it's a completely different passage, right? But what can also happen? It can say, but there was actually a new study that said blah, blah, blah. But something that suggested more nuances or something like that. I don't know. Anything could happen. So in this case, you need to pay more attention. So you need to see where this ends. You see what I mean? Okay, so let's take a look. So now I just need to be careful about just one thing, and that is, where do I see this thing end in this passage? Okay? Where do I see this end? Where's the transition? Or is there a transition? If there's not a transition, fine. Easy. So easy. But if there is a transition, I want to see where that is. Okay, so that study conducted at blah, blah, blah. Okay, so are you going to read this like an idiot? Are you going to read this like an idiot? You already know what happened. Are you cycling enthusiast? Do you not know what's going to happen? Are you stupid? Why are you reading this? Why would you read this? That's stupid, right? Okay, notice that. Okay, so this is going to be the result. Are you going to even read the results? I don't care. I know what happened. I know what happened. What happened? You perform better in the company of others, right? Don't read this. You're gonna read all this? You're gonna say, okay, 2 minutes, 49 seconds is more than 2 minutes, 37. Why would you do that? Okay, so coming from here, I mean, reading from here to here, it would take like 5 seconds. Come on. Okay, 15 lines, like 5 or 6 seconds. Okay, 20 lines. Okay, so you should stop here, right? Because something happens here. You should skim, right? You're skimming for something. You're skimming for something that seems out of the ordinary, right? And then it says, Triplet acknowledged that his observations were far from rigorous, so he conducted an experiment. Okay, we have an additional experiment now, right? To show that the effect persisted in a tightly controlled lab study, right? Okay, so I guess we have 2 studies supporting that, right? So Triplet said, okay, you know, there's kind of a, do you need to go back and see what that limitation is, see what that less rigorous procedure was? You don't need to check for that. You should say, okay, I mean, I guess he was kind of wrong, or there was some kind of limiting factor, some kind of con to his study, but he acknowledged this, and then he made a new study. So now you're going to look at another study. So the first one was about cyclists. I mean, and you need to potentially go back to this passage. Potentially you need to go back. But anyway, okay, so now we're going to do that controlled lab study, okay? And then it goes on, it says, well, and even before this happened, we're doing the performing in the company of others versus alone, and we're saying this is stronger, faster. Okay, so now it's 40 children. Why would you read this? You're crazy if you're reading this. Blah, blah, blah. Okay, what is it? He measured how quickly, blah, blah, blah. Fishing reel. Okay, so, I mean, just do this. Okay, 40 children, fishing reel. Task was simple, blah, 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 but novel, and none of the children had played before, blah, blah, blah. They performed the task both alone and in the presence of other children, right? You're just skimming. Don't read this. Don't have fun. Okay, don't imagine this. If you're picturing this in your head, you're doing something. You're spending way too much time in this. Don't have fun, please. It's not fun. Don't. Okay, and Triplet noticed that they want to read faster in the presence of others. Okay. Is there something out of the ordinary so far? No. It's all something we expected, right? So you perform better in the presence of others, right? And he concluded that an audience, okay, he concluded that, so this is the significance. I mean, it's not going to depart so much from what we have, but the audience enables people to liberate latent energy, not normally available. Yeah. Okay, so audience enables people to liberate latent energy. That's going to be our significance, right? Doesn't really mean much, to be honest. Okay, so let's take a look. Science doesn't always tell simple stories, and other researchers challenged Triplet's groundbreaking results. Now you should start reading. Now you should start reading, okay? So like up till line 35, if you spent a lot of time on that, wrong approach, okay? So now you should read, okay? So what's happening here? Other researchers challenged Triplet. Okay? While some researchers replicated Triplet's effect. Okay, so they got the same effect, right? Oh, we have a word for this, right? So let's just call this asif, right? So what triplet have? Okay, so this thing we're just going to call social facilitation, right? This whole thing is social facilitation. Others found the opposite effect. Right? So we have this contradiction here. So we haven't not seen this. We have seen a contradiction before. You remember? When we're doing the agriculture passage, right? Like the very first science passage that we did. We had two old studies which suggested one said that people brought agriculture into Europe, and another said ideas brought agriculture into Europe. But here, okay, so here, social facilitation versus social inhibition, right? So that's our, that's the dichotomy right now. Joseph P. and Richard H. asked participants in their study to learn a simple maze, either blindfolded alone or blindfolded in the presence of other people. Okay, so while you're reading this, can you expect what's going to happen here? Can you expect what's going to happen here? Are we going to be talking about SF or SI?
SI.
Why? Why would you talk about SI after this? Yeah?
They already talked about
No. No. Not exactly. That's not, I mean, you can think about that, but that's just what you think. It's about how they worded this, right? It's main clause versus subordinate clause, right? What's more important, the main clause or the subordinate clause?
main clause.
Main clause. What does it say? So starting from here, what's the subordinate clause? Well, some researchers replicated triplets effect, right? That's not what we should be focusing on. It's the main clause, right? Others found the opposite effect. So that should be your reference point. That should be how you take the next sentence in. So when you're reading the next sentence, you should think to yourself, okay, since this sentence was this, and now we're talking about a study, we're probably going to be talking about the opposite effect. Right? In their study to learn a simple maze, okay, so I'm not going to read this, blah, 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 completed the maze more quickly when they were alone. Okay, there we go. Just circle alone more quickly. That's it, right? Do you need to read everything else? No. And then it says inconsistencies like these persisted for years. Okay, so inconsistencies, probably talking about this, right? Until social psychologist Bob Z. All right, so there was this contradiction, and now there's a BZ. Proposed a solution. Okay, good. It all depends on the nature of the task. Okay, trash. Well, I mean, it's not telling us anything. It all depends on the nature of the task. Now we need to find out what that nature is, right? And I mean, aside from this passage, what this person is saying is, isn't it, why is he stating such an obvious thing? We already found out from the experiments that it depends on the nature of the task. Why does he have to say that, like, as if, anyway, okay. Audiences accentuate our instinctive responses and make it more difficult to override those responses, blah, 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 blah. What? Okay, just skip it. If you're having trouble, like with the instinctive responses, override these responses, carefully consider alternatives. It's easy to reread this sentence, and that's why you take too much time. Don't read it. Just find that easy solution and move on. Like we're focusing on this, right? Depends on the nature of the task. Just want to find something that corresponds to this. The children and blah, blah, devoted little thought and attention to frantically winding the experimental fishing reel. Okay, little thought and attention, right? So this is SF. In contrast, learning a maze is difficult and it requires concentration. Okay, and this is SI. So maze learners were probably distracted by the knowledge they were being watched and feared making a mistake. Right, so that's the difference. I guess this is the nature of the task. So the first nature of the if it's little thoughts and attention, then there's going to be social facilitation. But if it's difficult, right? This is scenario B, then it's going to be SI. Okay, I feel like I'm done, but I mean, it feels like everything's solved, so I feel kind of complete. Okay, but the pastor still has something to say, so let's just stick with what we have. Stick with what we have, meaning I'm just looking for something that's out of the ordinary, right? Something that doesn't conform to what I have so far, right? So this person said, okay, it depends. I mean, let me just rephrase it. It depends on the complexity, right? I mean, this is just my words, but does it require much thought or less thought, right? Z avoided experimenting with humans at first, choosing to observe the behavior of 72 cockroaches. This is our process. With a small team, he devised 2 athletic tasks that required cockroaches scuttle from. Okay, so this is Z's study, by the way. So before you even read this study, you should know what the study is. Okay? As soon as it says cockroaches, you should tell me that this is probably going to be in 4 groups. You know what I mean? Because we need 4 different scenarios. We need I mean, you know what I'm saying, right? He devised 2 small athletic tasks. Some of the cockroaches completed a simpler task, right? And the remaining cockroaches completed a more difficult task, right? Okay, so that's what you should get, right? And then it says some of the cockroaches completed these tasks alone, but the researchers also built a small audience box. Okay, so that's not something I did not expect, right? So everything is according to plan. I don't care then, right? You know, I don't care. Cockroaches were much quicker to cover the stray, blah, 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 reaching the darkened goal compartment. I mean, I don't even know what the darkened compartment is. If you were thinking about this and if you were visualizing this in your head, you got it all wrong. That's just wrong. It's not like a personal difference or anything. You shouldn't do that since you guys ran out of time, right? You guys spent too much time here. But the cockroach athletes responded very differently to an audience where they were faced with the complex maze, okay? Reaching the goal 76 seconds more quickly when they were alone. Okay, so alone is better for the complex maze. The same audience that pushed the cockroaches, blah, 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 more complex. And then what do we have? Okay, it's done. Do we have anything out of the ordinary here? No. This is all something that I expected. Where did I expect this? Like here, in this paragraph, I was already done, right? So how is this passage structured? Okay, so in the very beginning, we start talking about social facilitation. Like this was there at the beginning. And then we have 2 research that support this. And then we say, but there was actually a problem. There was actually a contradiction. And then this guy solved it. And then we have that cockroach study. Simple. Very simple. Okay? Shouldn't take you too much time. Okay, let's take a quick break and then we'll come back. Okay. Main purpose. So we're just going to do this and then we're going to move on to the writing section. Main purpose. So I can think, yeah, there was some kind of contradiction. And then this guy came along and he resolved that. It's just that, right? SF versus SI, right? There was that contradiction, and then this person explained that. Assert that a majority group learn. Okay, learn? No, never talked about. We never talked about learning something. It's about performing, right? Present the contradictory results of two studies. Okay, there we go. Okay, so I mean, it's not necessarily two studies, but I'll let this go, right? Because it has some words that I like about learning. About learning, what? About learning? Okay, that have each been considered groundbreaking. I don't necessarily know about that. I don't know why we're talking about learning in the first place, right? This one is a deal breaker as much as it is for A, right? What about C? Show how various experiments helped. Okay, various experiments? Yeah, we had a lot, right? So for SF, we had like 2 studies supporting this. And then for SI, we had another study supporting this. And then this guy had 1 study. So we had 4 in total. Various experiments helped establish and refine the understanding of an audience's effect on performance. There we go. That's perfect, right? Chronicle the historical development of competing theories. Okay, competing theories. Who chose D? Anybody choose D? Okay, good. So why is it not D though? Well, first of all, it's not about social interaction. It's mostly about performance, right? We're not so interested in the historical development, although there is some change as time goes by. It's mostly about solving that contradictory result, solving that contradiction. Oh, okay. So this one, so now when you come across a question like this, okay, so now is the time to read specifically. Like even if it's okay if you skipped around in the passage, if you skimmed, but here, like, okay, so what is it? What does it talk about? The design of triplets fishing reel experiment. So now what this means is now you need to read the fishing reel experiment. Okay, I mean, not so much because since you have a line reference question anyway, right? So you can still get away with reading less. But anyway, now you should focus on it, okay? But not before this. Don't read when you're reading. Do not be led into thinking that questions like these should cause you to read the entire passage in detail when you're reading. You don't need to do that, okay? So what should I do here? Okay, so it's about, what is it asking? Design of triplets fishing reel experiment most likely ruled out which potential objection. Okay, so you're gonna see this pretty often actually. I mean, not that often, but it does show up. Potential objection to the finding. I did mention this actually, okay? Do you mention, do you remember when we were doing that agriculture passage, okay? I only mentioned those because those are the ones you guys remember the best, okay? The agriculture passage. In the agriculture passage, there was a part that says, okay, they found skeletons and they came down, they said, oh, it's 149 individuals, right? And then it says, the team took DNA in such a way as to ensure that each individual was sampled only once, right? Sampled only once. They add that. Why would they say this? I think I told you guys when we were doing this. I told you guys there could have been a question here, but they didn't ask that question here. Do you guys remember that? Yes? Why would you mention the fact that they sampled them only once? They sampled the DNA only once. Because someone might say, hey, I mean, your results say it's 149 individuals, but actually, wouldn't it be 75? Didn't you guys just make a mistake and collect the DNA from each individual twice or something like that? You guys might have made that mistake, right? So actually it's 75 people, but you guys times that by 2, and then you guys came to that result. So you guys are potentially wrong. That's what this is, okay? So I want to find a sentence like that, okay? So what should I do? I'm just going to go to the line references right away, okay? So 19 to 22. Okay, so 19 to 22, what does it say? 19 to 22, well, okay, we didn't even start talking about the fishing reel experiment. So A is gone, right? So it starts here, 23. What's B? What's the line number for B? 23 to what? 23 to 24? Recruited them. What potential objection could there be? And how would he address that potential objection? Nothing. I mean, I don't understand. It's just very simple. I mean, no dimension to it. What about our next choice?
27 to 20.
The task was simple but novel, and none of the children had played with fishing rods before the experiment. There we go. There's our now you can see a potential objection, okay? You need to be able to see this. I don't know what to tell you, okay? So why did we mention the fact that the DNA was sampled only once? Because the potential objection might say, okay, I mean, you guys might have made a mistake, and you guys might have sampled it twice, okay? What can someone say here? Well, maybe some kids are like, their dads are fishers, and they're freaking amazing at fishing, and other kids, they just suck in general. They just suck at everything they do, right? But so he's leveling the playing field, saying, you know, okay, just to make everything sure, they all didn't have any experience with fishing rods. So theoretically, they should all perform equally, right? So this would be our answer. So C for that one. So C for number 14, and then you should go back to number 13, right? So what would that objection be? Say there could be a discrepancy between the fishing skills and how the handling of the fishing rods, okay? So it would be this one. Differences between the subject's performance with an audience and their performance without an audience may be influenced by the subject's prior experience, right? There's no reason in discussing why the other answer choices are not the answer for these kinds of questions. Like, you just need to be able to identify it, okay? Okay, what about 15? Human beings. How would you go about this? So again, we have a line reference to this, right? So I know it's not so specific. Some of you might say, okay, if it's specific, Daniel said go to the line reference question first, but this is pretty general, and you could look at the answer choices first. It's okay if you did that, but it would be pretty hard to solve this one because this one's it's not general, but it's not so specific either. So what should you do? Because I mean, the whole passage is discussing human beings, pretty much, right? But talking about human beings, what they have in common, that would be a little specific. So what I would do is I would go through these answer choices and just my goal would just be to eliminate one or two answer choices at best, right? So ones that are just plainly not true based on my understanding of the passage, okay? So just gonna get rid of the really, really bad ones, okay? Capable of ultimately mastering almost any task with which, does this passage even discuss this? This is so off topic, right? Like, I mean, it's not about learning. Why, I don't know why the answer choices are, they keep talking about learning and mastering. It's not about this, it's about performing, right? B, exhibit a general tendency to avoid attempting difficult tasks when they are alone. Okay, this one got it all wrong, right? It's not, we never discuss this. This is actually really off topic. Our concern was only that. Like, when do you perform better? When you're alone or when you're with a lot of people? Simple as that. You should leave it at that. It's not about their avoidance of something or whatever. It's given that they do it, how well do they perform? So this one is also irrelevant. C, have a strong desire to cooperate with other members of a group. Cooperate? I may have missed something, okay? You can think that. You can think like, okay, maybe I missed a part. Maybe one of the explanations, right? Maybe one of the explanations as to why they perform better when they have audiences is because of an innate nature, that innate desire to cooperate with other people. It's possible, so you can just like leave this. Possess abilities that they are not always able to exploit. This is also possible, right? Because, I mean, they perform better in certain situations, so it means that there's some kind of ability that they have underneath them, right? That's not exploited, okay? All right, so now let's go to the line reference questions, okay? So if you look at 9 to 10, so well, before you go to the line references, then you want to say, okay, so I have C, which is desire to cooperate, and D, possess abilities. I'll just say possess hidden abilities, because not always able to exploit, right? You can't always use this. You can only sometimes use this. So 9 to 10, line 9 to 10. In dozens of experiments, he pushed cyclists to ride as fast. What? I mean, it has nothing to do with any of these, right? What's the next one? What's B? 32 to 35. He concluded that an audience enables people to liberate latent energy, not normally. There we go. Easy. This one and D then. Okay. Even if you don't know what latent meant here, you could have guessed, right? Something that's not normally available, right? And that goes along with the answer choice. Okay, so now let's go to the writing section briefly. Okay, so today I will take questions for the writing section. Okay, I know you guys. Do you guys know you guys know which questions you got wrong and everything? So, I mean, yeah, well, still, I mean, I don't prefer to do it that way. I prefer you guys to do a blind, did you guys do a blind review? Did you guys solve it again using a blue pen? Who did not do that? Okay. Let's go over the ones. Okay, so. Okay, questions on the writing section. Yeah, writing. Number what?
17.
Guys, okay. All right, starting from next week, you guys aren't, okay, I'm just gonna give you guys your scores. I'm not giving you the answer sheet because you guys are screwed up right now. You guys think you could have gotten it right now that you know the answer, okay? Don't fall into that trap, okay? You're gonna get the same score if you take the test today again. I mean, not this test, but if you take another test, you're not gonna do better. You're still gonna suck, okay? I mean, the questions that you got wrong, you need to review it before you know the answer. And before the fact that you know you got it wrong, you need to review it. Okay? It's no use, okay? I mean, unless you're stupid, you're debating between two answer choices, usually, okay? Someone tells you it's wrong. What happens? Of course it's the other answer. Of course. Who wouldn't know this? Everybody knows this, unless you're stupid. I mean, don't fall into that trap though, okay? If you got it wrong, you will get it wrong again, okay? If you got it wrong, you couldn't have gotten it right. That's what you need to know. You did not make a mistake. It's not a mistake. You're just bad. You just got it wrong. Okay? No mistakes. Same for the math section. Okay? A lot of you think, oh, I keep on making mistakes. I know what it is, but I keep on making. No, it's not a mistake. If it were a mistake, then at least get an 800 on one of the tests. Or at least more often than not. Then I'll say it's a mistake. But if you're consistently getting like 780 on the math section, don't tell me it's a mistake. It's not a mistake. That's what you consistently get. Okay, questions on the writing section? Yeah.
30.
30 what?
8.
38. Yeah.
24 and 25.
Yeah. Yes.
39.
Yeah. Hmm? 4. Yes. 11. Okay, and
28.
28. Okay, you guys can just shout it out. What else? 43. Okay, if you're watching the video right now and you have a question that's not on the board, you can also say it, okay? 30. Huh? 40. 31. 챗에 저기 번호 알려주면 말씀해. Okay, let's take a look. 4. Okay. I mean, if you can tell me later. It's fine. We'll just do these first, and then you can tell me as we go on. Okay. So writers consider adding. Okay. So you should think to yourself. Okay, this. Okay. Talking about this passage is not important, guys. You need to know that. Why? Are you going to get this passage again? Like, are you ever going to get this passage again? No. What matters is the method. Okay? That's the only thing that matters. It's not, the passage does not matter. Okay? In the long term, it does not matter. What matters is you should have thought about the scenarios in which you can add a sentence, right? So you tell yourself, okay, if this is a detail, or if this fills in the logical gap in the passage, then I can add it, right? But I need to be careful if it's a relevant detail or an irrelevant detail, right? All right, so let's take a look. So at first glance, it seems like it could potentially talk about some detail. Okay, so what should we do here? Just gonna start here. Conventional agriculture uses 70% of the world's available drinking water, while vertical farming much more efficient. Okay, so that's what it wants to say, right? Using drip irrigation to water the roots of plants directly rather than blah blah blah. Vertical farmers use less water. Other water efficient methods available to vertical farmers are H and A. Okay, other methods are H and A. Okay. So we talked. This was a comparison between conventional agriculture and vertical farming techniques, and it said this is more efficient, and then vertical farmers use less water. So kind of elaborating on this point, and then we talked about other water methods available to vertical farmers. So we're talking about methods here. And then it says, wheat, corn, and rice are problematic to grow in vertical farms. Okay, problematic because of the large amount of space. No, we're talking about methods. If this were to be a detailed sentence, it would need to elaborate on these methods. But it did not, okay? So I would look at these two answer choices first, okay? I would still doubt myself a little bit, but anyway, so C says, no, because it distracts from the focus of the paragraph by, okay, so it just says irrelevant information, that's it. D says, because it contradicts, okay, so this is saying it's a contradiction, right? This is exactly the two most common scenarios. But I would say it's irrelevant. And just in case, if you're unsure of yourself, you can take a look at these two answer choices also. Okay? I mean, but I would do this personally if you don't have enough time. I would start this question and then come back to this and then later on read A and B just to be sure. But, you know, if you do have enough time, you can take a look in the first round, if there is that element of uncertainty, okay? Then you would say yes, because it presents a claim that is countered later in the passage. Okay, is it countered later in the passage? Then you need to kind of think about this. But B says because it gives an example that supports the main point of the paragraph. Does it support the main point of the paragraph? It's usually about that. It's about this comparison between vertical farming techniques and vertical farming methods and that kind of thing. So I don't think B is the answer. And A, you need to think about this. Okay, a claim that is countered later in the passage. Does this conform to one of your scenarios? No. Okay, no such thing as this. If you read on, if you took a look at the latter part of the passage, your 호구. You know what I mean? You shouldn't have, because you should have confidence in yourself that these are the two scenarios that in which you can add a sentence. Okay, so I mean, there's also going to be like it sets up the information that follows. Oh, you can add this because this acts as a setup, or it acts like an intro. This shows up sometimes. Also, this is a possibility, right? But you know, like you've seen this a lot, right? You've seen questions like these and that kind of stuff. But you know, this kind of stuff, like, it never happens. It's not a possibility, like, ever. Can you trust me on that? So 11. 뭐 있어요? Okay, let's take a look at 11. Wants a conclusion that restates the main idea of the passage. Okay, main idea of the passage. If you had trouble doing this, you should have done that, okay? When you were starting off the passage, when you were looking here, what you should have done is you should have turned the pages and you should have checked question 11. You read the title and then you go to question 11, okay? And check what? If it's a conclusion, if there is a conclusion question or not, okay? And if you do realize, and in this case, you would realize, yeah, there is a conclusion question. So I would need to be careful when I'm reading this first paragraph also, okay? So what should you do? Okay, so it says current agricultural practices will not be able to. So it's kind of presenting a problem here, right? And then in the second sentence it says amount of blah blah blah. It's too great. This is also a problem. And then vertical farms maximize available space by stacking plants. Okay, so that is kind of a solution. But one creative alternative. This should actually go here, right? Before sentence 3. Right? So it introduces vertical farming as an alternative, right? To and kind of like a solution to this problem, right? Problem solution. We've seen this a lot, right? Problem solution, and then it says this method of farming increases crop production, and then yielding much more food. So it's all good, right? So how's the first paragraph structured? It's a problem and solution, right? Problem, solution, vertical farming as a solution. Still, and then conventional farming, blah, blah, blah. Conventional agriculture, blah, blah. And this is all praising, what is that? Vertical farming. Okay. So you can kind of stop here. Why? Because this one says, despite the advantages, right? So it means that it discussed the advantages before this, but what does it say? Difficult to construct. Difficult to construct buildings. So there is a downside to vertical farming, right? There is a downside to vertical farming, but it says, however, oh, okay. Preliminary experiments with local have been promising. Oh, okay, so this is about a future possibility, right? Future possibilities are pretty good, right? So it's saying, yeah, there are also like downsides to this, but the future is pretty promising, right? So in the end, he's praising it, right? So now let's go here, okay? So let's take a look. I'll just take a look at the answer choices. A says, vertical farming advocates will likely encourage consumers. What? Why in the world? Why are we talking about these people? Like in the first place, why are we not talking about vertical farming, right? B, vertical farming advocates. What? Vertical farming advocates again? Okay, so I'm just gonna leave these two out right now, okay? Because I'm not so sure why we're talking about advocates. I want to check if I have to. Researchers are continuing to investigate the feasibility of using low-cost LED lights. Okay, too specific, right? Notice that the question is restating the main idea, okay? So if you were kind of confused here, usually what happens is you know that it's asking for a main idea. So the question is asking you for the main idea, right? So you should stick to vertical farming. But usually what happens is after you read answer choice A, you get carried away and you pretend like this question doesn't exist and you're just filling in the blank for yourself. Don't do that, okay? A lot of people fall into that trap. They do this unconsciously. Don't do that. Vertical farming and similar efforts to meet the world's nutrition can only become more important. Yeah, it's saying vertical farming is promising. That's pretty much what this passage is. So that's why D is the answer. I mean, you don't even need to look. You don't need, if you were reading this part and you were thinking about like the logical relationship between this and this, no, you're wrong, because it just simply asked you about the main idea. You should be able to choose an answer even without looking at this, right? Just focus on vertical farming. Okay, 17. Okay, she asked her, right? Okay, she asked her. So if we did have a comma here, what could happen? Something like, she asked her, "What are you doing?" Right? Like as if you're reading a story, right? You're reading literature and then there's quotations. She asked her, "What are you doing?" But here we don't have any quotation marks, right? And we don't have any commas here. Okay? So basically, she pointedly asked her what she was doing. That's fine. It's not the verb coming first. It's just what she was doing, right? And you can't use a question here, of course, obviously. Okay. I mean, I didn't explain this because I thought it was pretty obvious. I asked him what he was doing. Okay. If I say I asked him what he was doing, is that what in the world is this? Okay, I have nothing to tell you. It's just wrong. You don't do that. Okay. I asked him when you okay, even if you ask someone, it's when you start it with the what, it's just going to be a subject and a verb, and then you just use a sentence. I mean, you just use a period, right? So here it should be A. If this is used in the inverted form, so no, right? And these two have question marks, which is not okay. 20. Combine. Okay. So combine sentence. What do you need to do when you're combining two sentences? What's the first thing that you should do? You should read the two sentences, right? Read the two sentences, Get down the relationship, okay? Relationship between the two, and then you're going to read through A, B, C, D. You're gonna ask yourself, okay, did the meaning get contaminated or is the grammar wrong? And you're just going to eliminate answer choices. And then after that, it's concision. Okay, so let's take a look. The events dismayed S. Okay, so that's pretty simple, right? The events dismayed S. Okay, pretty good. In 1964, she wrote and performed her first protest song to express her languish. Okay, so can this be a continuation? Yeah, sure, right? So she got dismayed, and then, so sequence of events, right? And then she expressed her anguish with that song, right? So it's okay. Continuation is okay. Can we say this is a contrast? It dismayed her, but no, I can't. It's not a contrast. It's along the same lines. Can we say it's a cause and effect? Can we say it's a cause and effect?
Yes.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
Yeah. Events dismayed her, and so as a result of that, her being dismayed, she wrote this in order to express her being dismayed, right? So it's okay, right? So cause and effect or continuation, either one is fine, okay? So now I'm going to go through the answer choices and eliminate ones that are grammatically incorrect or get the meaning wrong, okay? The events so dismayed as that. Okay, so this is used in a cause and effect relationship, right? Okay, we haven't talked about this, but actually, okay, so a lot of you might be a little bit unfamiliar with this language, but you can say this, you can do this. Events so dismayed as that, I mean, so that. You guys use so, I was so happy that I danced. It's okay, right? So dismayed her that she wrote and performed. So this one is okay. And then, so this one just uses a colon and blah, 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 wrote and performed. So, okay, this one is okay, right? Events to her dismay caused her in 1964 to, okay, so it uses caused. So obviously it's adding a cause and effect, but I wouldn't actually do this. This would contaminate the meaning completely. So if you say to someone's dismay, it means, like if I want to say I was disappointed because you guys failed the test, I would say the class to his dismay, to Daniel's dismay, failed the class. It's saying, so I mean, it's saying caused her to write and perform this song, and she was disappointed by that. She was dismayed by that. That's changing the meaning. Okay, so this one is gone. Events dismaying her caused her to write and performed. Okay, dismaying her. But what I don't like about this is that it's using this as an appositive. I mean, same as this, but if we're using this as an appositive, it means that this one is disposable, right? It's implying that it's disposable. So it would change the meaning just a little bit. So now I want to choose between this and this. This one is more concise, right? Because this one has two clauses using a semicolon. So I would go with A. 24. Okay, so this is just, I don't know what to tell you. Okay, this is using may as might, right? Might be. And weary versus wary. What's the difference? Yes.
Wary with the W-A-R-Y is like cautious, and wary is with the W-A-R-Y is like tired.
Yeah. Okay. So this one literally means you are tired, okay? Like your worn out shoe, like that kind of thing, right? But this one means you're alert of something, right? So here it needs to be C. $25. Okay, so this one is talking about we need to think about the possessive, right? Possessives, the team dynamics. Okay, so I don't need a possessive after dynamics. So it's either B or D, okay? What's dynamic? What's a dynamic? If you say team dynamic, what does that mean? Yeah, chemistry is okay. So team dynamics, let's say, it just kind of describes the relationship among the group, like what's happening, how they work together, how they each think of each other, that kind of thing. That's the team dynamic, right? Within the team. Among astronauts, and the variables. Well, I don't know why we need to use any possessives here, right? It just makes sense without any, okay? I don't know exactly why you were confused, whoever asked this, but you need to think about this. Okay, so if you use a possessive here, what needs to follow after that? It should probably be a noun, right? Right? My book, right? Or like an ing, a verb ing at least, right? Okay, 28. Okay, so this one is a sentence structure question. Let's take a look. A company's success depends largely on worker morale. Okay, so this is the subject. This is the verb. Okay, so what do we have? We have this so far. Right? So we have a lot of different options that can happen here, but let's think about this. Can you get rid of A right off the bat? Yeah, you can do that. Why? Because we have another verb here, right? And what does A do? Oh, no, not A. Sorry. That's for a different reason. I thought this was a comma, but anyway. We have this right now, okay? We have this, and it's asking you, what should I do here? So there's a lot of different possibilities, but when you have so many different possibilities, you should go through the answer choices. Try plugging it in. If you have something very restrictive, let's say, for example, you have a subordinating conjunction and then subject verb, and then you have an underlined portion, what needs to follow here? You need a subject and a verb. Right? So this one is pretty restrictive. In that case, you would go and just identify the answer. Right? You would look for that answer. But right now, a lot of different things can happen, potentially. So I don't know. We need to go through the answer choices. So this one uses a semicolon, which is okay, right? What do I need after a semicolon then? I just need a subject and a verb, right? 2010 Gallup study. Okay, so this is probably going to be the subject, but this one messed it up. Why? Because it put a comma between the subject and the verb. You don't do that. Okay? Do not do that. Unless you're using in a positive, right? In between the subject and the verb, you can't use a comma. Okay? So A is gone. What about this? Dash is okay, but same thing. Why? It has a comma. What? Then I got rid of B and C also. Right? But this one, screwed it up royally. I mean, I don't have any conjunctions. I don't have any punctuations. I don't know what this was up to. Right? So let's check D. So this one has a colon, right? It is a colon, right? It is a colon, but it's fine, right? What we need after this is just a subject and a verb, which is study, and then we have found. So that's okay. So D is the right answer. Let's take a look at 30. Okay, so all right, so this one you just need to know the nuance. I don't know what to tell you. And this one, based on what we've read and the situation, we would say insight. Okay, discernment is also, I mean, you can say this, but this is more like a judgment. Okay, discernment, like being able to tell A from B, that kind of thing, right? Them discerning stuff. But okay, so let's just look for example. So we were consistently talking about IO psychologists, and what do? They research ways to make them feel valued and engaged, and then they did this, right? So they research, they do that kind of research, and they want to promote productivity and cooperation, and that kind of thing, blah blah blah, like all the things that they do, right? And then now you read all of that, and now you come to this, right? So said that they want innovative ways to attract high-performing employees, and companies want to listen to them, right? But what are they going to listen to? Are they going to listen to their judgment? Are they going to judge it? No, not really. I feel like you got confused with D. It's not their intuition, because they're not going by feel, okay? Intuition would mean not based on logic, right? Not based on logic or facts, but more so on your instincts and your feels. That's what intuition is. What about perceptiveness? What does it mean, perceptiveness? Yeah?
It's like insightfulness.
Yes, in a sense, yes. Like perceiving stuff, right? What does what does it mean to perceive something? Yeah. Yeah. Just to take in information, that's a good way to put it. Okay. So it's not how well they take in information and that kind of thing, right? It's more their insight. So B would be the right answer here. Okay. So 31, all right. So if you were just looking at the table for this one, you're missing out. You're missing out if you went straight to the table on this question. Why? Because I see a colon here. Okay? What does a colon mean? Okay, I don't care about the grammar. What does it entail? Detail or elaboration is going to follow after that, right? So whatever is said here is going to elaborate it. This is going to be like an example supporting this, right? Whatever comes before, right? So what does it say? Reports that IO psychology is still a relatively small field. Okay, so you need an answer choice that talks about IO psychology being a small field, okay? So expected to increase is A. No, right? You want to choose an answer choice that goes with small field. Small field. More jobs? No. Small field. Okay, small field, okay. Projected to be. Why are we talking about projection? right? So we need to talk about the now, and we need to talk about it's small. So C would be the right answer. Okay? You don't even need to go to the graph. I mean, this I know is kind of different from what we learned, right? I said go back to the graph and do the true-false test and whatever, but that would take too much time. This is too good of a hint to let go, okay? So whenever you have a column, think to yourself, whatever is going to follow this is going to be detail to what's been mentioned before, okay? 33. All right, so this one's also a sentence structure question. Should we do 33? Okay, so though started with though. So this is a subordinating conjunction. You should be able to identify this. Okay? Though companies must spend. There we go. Okay, so what do we have here? So this is exactly the example that I talked about right before this, right? What happens if you have this? You need to have a subject and a verb after this. That's all you need, right? Can we have like a semicolon here? No. Can we have a colon? No. Right? So, no. What does A say? It has a comma, but no. Then we would have two conjunctions. So D is the right answer. Okay, introduces the topic of this sentence. Okay, so you need to think about this sentence only. The trap that you can fall into is looking at the sentence before that and, just going by your own thoughts. You need to answer this question. Okay, so answering this question means answering this. Introduces the topic of this sentence. So this sentence is this, right? That's it. Okay. So let's take a look. Okay, so I do want to know what it's about though. ESA considers, I mean, I'm not going to take this into consideration, but I'm just going to, so that I understand what it's talking about. ESA considers a species endangered. Okay, so why is it, when does it become endangered? If it is in danger of extinction throughout all or a significant portion of its range. Okay, so that's the definition of endangered. Many critics of the acts argued that this ambiguous terminology hinders species from being classified. Okay, so many critics are saying this classification is really bad. And then, this information should not come into play. So this is the sentence that I'm going to read. Scientists and government officials must define it for themselves. Okay, so first of all, I don't know what it is, right? So this it, obviously, it needs to be mentioned in our answer choice, I guess. So we need to have that singular noun, and they often reach different conclusions. Okay, so they need to define it, and they need to reach different, they sometimes reach different conclusions. Okay, so those two pieces of information, they need to define it. I don't know what it is, and then it says often reach different conclusions. Okay, so why don't we take a look? A says some critics also worry that the ESA could have negative economic impacts. Okay, well, first of all, then it would become the ESA, which would not make any sense. They need to define the ESA. I don't know what that means, okay? And I don't know how that would set this up. What about B? Although there is disagreement about the terms that should be used. Okay, so if I say although, it needs to be in a contrast relationship, right? disagreement, and they need to define it, and they reach different conclusions. Isn't different conclusions same as disagreements? I don't know about this. Critics do not always have suggestions about how the ESA might be improved, okay? So still, like I need to define it also. Then in this case, it would also be the ESA, which would not make any sense. What about B? Because the act does not explain the meaning of a significant portion. Oh, there we go. Oh, this is perfect, actually, if you think about it, okay? So I didn't have any thoughts before I read this, but how does this present this part? It presents it as the cause, right? And as this being the cause, these two things become the effect, right? Does that make sense? It does not explain it, so you would need to define it, and also they reach different conclusions from time to time. And then it would become the meaning of a significant portion. Let's take a look at 38. Okay, so this one was probably the hardest one. And why? Because I feel like I didn't talk about this in class, right? It's one of those rare questions that I mean, I think it showed up again. But anyway, what I need to tell you is this, okay? So, and subject verb can be used as an appositive. Like this whole thing can be used as an appositive, meaning it can be used as a comma splice. So something like this could potentially happen. Subordinating conjunction, subject verb, subject verb. Okay, so what is this thing doing here? It's just saying, okay, so this one is just additional information. That's what it's saying, right? This underlined part is the sentence, like the core of the sentence. Okay? And this one can throw you really off if you do not read the entire sentence. Okay? A lot of you chose D here. Okay? Who chose D? Oh, so like most of you. Okay, so it's good that you chose D because it means that you were actually thinking about the grammar. Yeah, if you do this, okay, subordinating conjunction, subject, verb, right? Oh, okay, that's easy. We have a comma, so I don't need this. I would just need a subject and a verb, right? That's what you thought. But what that also means is you didn't read till the end. Why? Because I see another comma here. And then what happens? Conservationists could identify. I see another clause here. Right? So you should have stopped and thought about it. Okay? That's why it's D. Then, no, not D. B. Right? Because then this bit would become and subject verb. Right? So this part would become that appositive that I just talked about. Same as this. Okay? Okay, let's take a look. 39 introduces the discussion in the rest of the paragraph. Okay. They would benefit from this. Okay, I don't know what this is, but they're saying they would benefit it. It would be good, right? Something would be good. So let's take a look at the next sentence. The act uses only two categories. Okay, so but this one, since it uses the word only, this one is talking about the bad that's happening right now, right? This one is talking about the desirable. This one is talking about the current situation. The act uses only two categories to classify at-risk species. Two categories are endangered, likely to go extinct, and threatened, likely to become endangered in the future. By contrast, okay, so only two categories. So it's saying this is really bad. But IUCN, what do? They acknowledge a broader range. Okay. All right, so it's pretty simple, right? So this paragraph was about this thing. The Act, the ESA's criteria, they use only two categories, but the IUCN they acknowledge a broader range. Okay, so they could benefit from, I guess, a broader range. So that's what I would need to choose, right? Because they're presenting this as being desirable and using two categories, which is being, which is having a little bit too few categories as bad, right? So that's why D would be the answer here. Being more inclusive so that they have more categories to have a lot of species. I mean, to include a lot of species. Okay, just two more questions. Let's take a look at 40. This one, combining these two sentences. The Act uses only two categories to classify at-risk species. Okay, we read this sentence, and then it says these two categories. Okay, so the thing that you need to think about is okay. So we have a common element here. It's best if we get rid of this. I mean, it wouldn't happen always, but like 99% of the time, we would get rid of this. Okay. Anyway, so let's take a look. What about A? So if we use A, okay, well, this is pretty bold. It's just using a colon, right? Uses two categories to classify at-risk species. And then it says endangered and threatened. Oh, that's good actually. I mean, it's just using a noun. And does this comment well on the relationship? Yeah, because endangered and threatened, this is elaborating on the two categories mentioned before. So this one is okay, and it is the answer then. Why? Because it's also the most concise one, right? So given that the meaning comes across, this should be the answer. So you can go with, I mean, I would just choose A, okay? The answer is A, right? Okay, let's take a look at 43. This one's the last one. Which information from the table provides the strongest evidence in support of the passage's main argument? Okay, so the main argument, what was the main argument? They need to, like, it's the paragraph that we've just read, right? They don't have a lot, they're not being so inclusive. They need to include more species, that kind of thing, right? They're using only two categories, they're not including a lot, so we need to include more. The ESA. And they're saying these people are the good people, they include a lot, they could use more. These people could use more, right? Okay, so let's take a look. 43. So that main argument, okay, so I got rid of A right off the bat. Okay. Why did I get rid of A? Because this one has nothing to do with our main point. Because our main point is what? The ESA should include more, right? But A is talking about only the IUCN. So that's irrelevant, right? This one was presented as a model, right? This one presented as something that we should achieve, right? Something that we should strive for, but not why that does not support the main argument, right? I mean, just this fact alone, it wouldn't do anything, right? So I'm not going to go with A. What about B? It says ESA fails to recognize 82.7% of the species listed as at risk by the IUCN. Okay, so now this one is an active comparison. So this one, this one is okay, I would say. I mean, I didn't check the facts because I didn't want to. I don't want to think too much about it. I'm just going to. The answer to it says fails to recognize 80 points, blah blah blah, listed by the IUCN as at risk. Okay, so this one also. IUCN includes 6 classes of animals in its classification of at. Okay, not. Don't just talk about the IUCN. Make some kind of comparison. So is it B or C? ESA fails to recognize 82.7% listed as at risk by the IUCN. It's probably talking about this, right? What about this one? 80% amphibian. All right, why bother just talking about amphibians when you can talk about the total percentage? You know what I mean? Because it's about supporting the main argument. So why not include all these species? It's a stronger opinion too, right? So B should be the answer, right? It is B, right? Okay. Okay. Got confused for a second. Okay. Okay. Let's take a quick break. Come back to the reading section. Okay. 네, 저 그거 좋아요. 감사합니다. Alright, let's take a look at this history passage first. This one was pretty difficult, right? Yes? No? Could you guys close the window? I'm sorry. Relatively more difficult. Okay, why don't you guys close your eyes? Who thought this was 5? 4? 3? 2? 1? Huh. Okay, open your eyes. Someone thought it was a 2. Huh. Okay. We'll see how that person did. Okay. Okay. I don't. Who's gonna be at the history course today? Okay, so we're gonna talk a little bit more about the history. If you wanna, I mean, it's free. You guys can just come because we're doing that because you guys suck at history. So take advantage of that. Okay. So we'll talk a little bit more about history passages in detail tonight. Like we'll take a more methodical look at that. But right now, I just want to take a look at this passage specifically. Okay, so what should we do? Okay, so it started saying, "I may be pardoned if on such a theme as the general character of the American people." Okay, so this is the theme, I guess, general character of the American people. And the general character of the social system of America, I presume, right? Wait. Yeah, sorry, I skipped this part. It says Charles Dickens wrote an account of his travels and of the people he encountered. And he spent 6 months traveling in North America. So that was something, I mean, it's easy, but it was crucial, right? Him traveling to North America and him writing about the travels, and he says, oh, let me say something about these people, right? Let me say something about these people and the social system to a stranger's eyes. Okay, so we're probably going to be talking about American people and the social system. So these two things probably. That's what you should expect because he said he's going to talk about these two things. As presented to a stranger's eyes. Okay, so this stranger is going to be himself, probably. Okay? So he's saying, okay, I don't belong to the United States. I want to tell you guys how these two things look to someone who's an outsider. Okay? I desire to express my own opinions in a few words before I bring these volumes to a close. Okay, so yeah. So it's one of those, right? What do I mean? It's one of those intro paragraphs where it introduces the information pretty clearly, right? It's that he says, okay, this is what I'm going to be talking about, right? So he says I'm going to be talking about these two things, right? How it looks to him, right? All right, so let's go to the passage. So it says they are by nature. Okay. So who's they? American people. That's our only option, right? It can't be the social system. It needs to be American people. So American people are by nature frank, brave, cordial, hospitable, and affectionate. Okay. So what do you do when you have a lot of adjectives bunched up together? Okay, stop with the pen. Don't know who it is. Stop with the pen. Not going to say it twice. What do you do when you have more? When you have a list in a history passage? Okay, you guys should write this down. You should think about the common denominator. You should think about what it's trying to convey, okay? Remember back in the first passage, the very first passage that we read about public transportation, right? About how people think public transportation is really bad, but actually it could be pretty good, right? In that passage, instead of saying public transportation, what did it say? Bus, commuter boats, streetcars, and subways, blah, blah, blah. Listed all of them, right? For a rhetorical effect. So here, same thing, okay? Frank, brave, cordial, hospitable, and affectionate. You need to think about the common ground. Instead, what, like, are you going to remember all of them? Is that what he wants to say? No. There is something that he wants to say the most. Okay, so what would that be? What would be the common ground? Frank, brave, cordial, hospitable, and affectionate. Huh? What? What?
Friendly.
What was that?
Overall friendly.
Friendly. Okay. Does friendly have anything to do with being brave? Okay, so no, it's not friendly. Yeah?
Positive.
Positive, yeah. Positive, okay? So, I want to take a quick look at one of the questions. Just a second, sorry. Okay, question number 33. Did someone choose B here? Who chose B for 33? Yeah. So if you don't think about that common denominator, you're going to end up choosing B. Okay? That's why you got it wrong. Okay? So we'll go back to the passage and we'll discuss it, okay? So it's, like you said, yeah, it's just going to be positive characteristics, okay? Cultivation and refinement seem but to enhance their warmth and ardent enthusiasm, okay? So B says, describe particular kindnesses, right? From number 33, right? Kindness. So it's easy to think, yeah, it's kindness. Yeah, they said warmth and what? Cordial, hospitable, affectionate. No. What about this? What about frank? What about brave? What about enthusiasm? Is this all about kindness? No. It's not. Right? Okay, and we'll come back to that question, but you can't just do that. Okay? I don't know how to say it, but just don't do that 얼렁뚱땅 thinking everything's the same thing. Don't. It's not, right? So it's not saying they're kind. It's saying they're good, right? Good, and talking about all these characteristics. And it is the possession of these latter qualities in a most remarkable degree. So, okay, what's the latter quality? Probably this enthusiasm, right? Which renders an educated American one of the most endearing and most generous of friends, right? So they're also good friends, right? So far, what's the common denominator? It's just saying, okay, they're good people, right? They're good people. To group it all, I need to say that. And then it says, I never was so won upon as by this class, never yielded up my full confidence and esteem so readily and pleasurably as to them, right? Okay, so I never gave my confidence to them, to other people, as I did to these people, right? Never can make again in half a year so many friends for whom I seem to entertain the regard of half a life, right? Yeah, so, I have so many close friends that I made in a short amount of time, right? So just simplify that idea, right? So, but the thing is, like, this whole paragraph was about this, okay? So if you found this out, you would have gotten everything right. But if you if you made a mistake, and that mistake is probably just, looking at a few words, leaving a few words out and saying, okay, that's, he's talking about them being kind. No, he's not talking about them being kind, right? You see what I mean? Okay. So what do we have so far? We don't have anything so far. Like, what did he say? He said he wants to talk about American people, and he also wants to talk about the social system. And then what does he say? Oh, this is good, right? These people, they're really good people, right? And then it says, these qualities are natural, I implicitly believe, to the whole people. Okay, everybody has that. That they are, however, okay, here we go. Here we go. Now we're going somewhere, right? Now he has something he wants to say, right? However, sadly sapped and blighted in their growth among the mass. What do you mean exactly? So, I mean, I don't know. Sapped and blighted? Like, what do you mean? Sapped and blighted? It doesn't even matter if you don't know what this means, okay? Like, you need to define it anyway. Actually, it would be better if you don't know it in this case, right? And that there are influences at work which endanger them still more. Okay, so there are influences that can endanger the American people and give but little present promise of their healthy restoration. Okay, they not a lot of promise, right, to the restoration, right? Is a truth that ought to be told. Okay, so this part is a contrast to this part, right? And what is it saying? There are certain influences that endanger the people, right? So that's what I want to get. Influences that endanger people. But so still he didn't elaborate on this, right? So I feel like he needs to go into detail on this. What does he mean exactly? The influence that endangers American people, right? Endangers American people. Okay, I didn't do this on purpose. Some people might have a aversion to that word. It is an essential part of every national character to pique itself mightily upon its faults. Okay, so what does it say pique means? Take pride in. Okay, so it's an essential part of every national character. What does it mean, every national character? Every national character to take pride in itself mightily upon its faults. I don't know who these people are, right? Okay, so what am I going to do? You can have the liberty to. You can give yourself the flexibility and liberty to think about this. Every national character, someone who has a country, so basically anybody, right? Or person from any country. I mean, it's okay if you think about it. Well, it's just what you do need to know is that it's stepping back. Right? It's stepping back and it's talking about a more general truth. Because before this, what are we doing? We were talking about the American people, right? But right now, are we talking about American people? No. Probably something a little bit more general than that, okay? So now it's kind of stepping back and saying, okay, it's a lot of people take pride in their faults, right? Take pride in their faults. What does it mean? And to deduce tokens of its virtue. What? So this refers to national character, right? It's wisdom from their very exaggeration. What does their refer to? Faults. From the false exaggeration. Okay, so if you did not understand this sentence, it would have given you some trouble. The passage would have given you some trouble. So what is it saying? They take pride in their faults, in the national character's faults. Right? National character, National character. Okay, let's say for example, like Koreans. Koreans like to do stuff fast, right? To a fault. Okay, I mean, I guess as of now, I mean, contemporary Koreans not so much, but it used to be really the case. Well, anyway, you can say that's a fault, right? People hurry a lot. People hurry a lot, but they take pride in that. That's what it's saying. They take pride in that, and also they do what? They deduce tokens of the national character's virtue or the national character's wisdom from the false exaggeration, right? So they find virtue from the fact, from the exaggeration of their faults. Wow, we do everything at lightning speed, exaggerating that and, finding virtue in that, right? So it's kind of stupid, right? Looking at your faults and thinking, yeah, that's really, that's something to be proud of, right? That's what it's saying. And he's presenting this as some kind of general truth, right? And then it says, one great blemish in the popular mind of America. Okay, so I guess he's implying that Americans also take pride in their fault, right? So what fault is that? Is universal distrust, is what he comes at, right? So this is what you should realize. Okay, so everybody from every country, right? They take pride in their faults. For American people, that fault is distrust. They don't trust anybody, right? That's what universal means. They don't trust anybody. Yet the American citizen plumes, what does plume mean? Indulgent, and then what? Okay. Well, it's the same thing as take pride in, I guess, right? It's along the similar line of that, right? So the American citizen still takes pride in himself upon this spirit being universal distrust, right? Even when he is sufficiently dispassionate. Okay, so dispassionate means what? Good. Not influenced by something, not biased, right? So objective, that's dispassionate, okay? Dispassionate to perceive the ruin what does it refer to? The what? Distrust? Yes, distrust could also be it. But technically speaking, okay, so it can't be the ruin because it works the ruin, right? It causes the ruin, right? So what could it be? Perceived? No. Singular noun. I'm looking for a singular noun. Oh, spirit, this spirit. And this spirit refers to universal distrust anyway, right? So, the American citizen, right? The American citizen is dispassionate enough to know that universal distrust causes ruin, right? They know it's bad. They know it's bad, but still they what? They take pride in it. Okay? So that's what it's trying to say. Okay? And will often adduce it in spite of his own reason as an instance of the great sagacity and acuteness of the people. Okay? So they say, right? In spite of his own reason, right? Their logic tells them otherwise, but they say, yeah, that's why, it's because we're smart, kind of thing, right? We distrust people because we're too smart for them, right? And their superior shrewdness and independence. Okay, so this paragraph started off with the general sentence. It's not just talking about Americans, but it's talking about every national character. So every national character takes pride in its faults, and Americans do this too. What is that fault? Universal distrust. And they do that stupidly, knowing that it's going to cause them ruin, right? It's going to do them harm, right? So let's go to the next part. And then it says, you carry, says the stranger. Okay, so who's the stranger? Well, first of all, you should ask yourself this question. Why? Because it's a compressive noun. right? It's the stranger. It's not a stranger. So he's saying, I mentioned this before, right? So where's that stranger? It's actually probably, it's in the first paragraph, right? If you take a look at the first paragraph, what does it say? In the first paragraph, it says, I desire to express my own opinions. No. As presented to a stranger's eyes, right? So he's saying, yeah, I want to talk about how these two things look to this, right? So, I mean, this stranger could be anybody, actually. Like, somebody who does not belong to America, right? Like, so it could be a hypothetical person. It could also be Charles Dickens himself, right? But why doesn't he say, he could have just wrote this, right? Yeah, he could have, instead of using this as a quotation mark, right? You know what I mean? Instead of, I mean, he could have just gotten rid of this. He could have got rid of the quotation marks, and he could have said, American people carry this jealousy and distrust into every transaction of public life, right? This is what Charles Dickens wants to say to Americans, isn't it? Right? This is how people who are objective enough look at American people. That's the point that Charles Dickens wants to make here, right? But why did he put it in a quote? Because he doesn't want to make it too direct. He doesn't want, it's kind of a little bit avoiding confrontation a little bit, right? I mean, even the people who read it know it's his opinion, but he's not saying it so directly, right? So that's what it is. And he's saying it's not necessarily his opinion, it's something a little bit more objective. That could also be it, right? It's also a little bit more, because this stranger, right? He's very detached. He's very objective, looking at things from a certain perspective. He might be, Charles Dickens, people might think, is biased, okay? So anyway, what does this stranger say? You carry this jealousy and distrust into every transaction of public life. Who is he talking to? The American people, right? So he's talking to the American people. Okay, you have this jealousy and distrust, so do this. By repelling worthy men from your legislative assemblies, it has bred up a class of candidates for the suffrage. What does suffrage mean? Wasn't this on your vocab list? Yes, okay. So it has bred up a class. Okay, can we say this is a cause and effect? By doing this, it bred up a class of candidates for the suffrage. And who are these candidates? Disgrace the American institutions. Okay? All right, so what's the cause? Repelling worthy men, right? They did not, I guess they made them leave, right? By repelling worthy men from your legislative assemblies, bred up a class of candidates who disgrace your institution. It has rendered you so fickle. It has made you, okay? So whenever you see render, just change it into made. Make or made. It has rendered you so fickle. What does fickle mean? You need to know this. Huh? Yeah. You change often, right? Fickle, right? And given to change. But I mean, even if you don't know what fickle means, we have given to change here, so it's okay. That your inconstancy has passed into a proverb. What does this mean? What's a proverb? Yeah, it could be a wise saying or like just a saying, right? So your inconstancy has passed into a proverb. Like people say, hey, don't be like an American, right? Don't change so much, right? Don't be so fickle. Don't be an American, right? That's what he's trying to say. Like it's such a ingrained truth in people's minds that they now just say it, right? But I mean, like who cares? Like he's just saying, okay, everybody knows, right? Everybody knows you change a lot. For you no sooner set up an idol firmly than you are sure to pull it down and dash it into fragments. Okay, so as soon as you set up an idol, what's an idol? Yeah.
It's like a figure that's worshipped.
Yeah. Like literally idols are, like you said, yeah, literally some figure, right? If you read the Bible, it could be like in the shape or form of an animal, right? And then they just make it out of pottery or whatever, or gold, and they worship it. That's what an idol is, right? It's talking about that idol here, right? So they set up an idol, they're about to worship it, and what do? They just smash it on the ground, right? They put it up and then they smash it, right? That's how fast you change. That's what he's saying, right? And this, we've seen this before. This is just saying, hey, remember that subject verb thing? Remember that whole sentence before this? I'm that exact thing, right? So everything here is implied, right? No sooner or later set up an idol than you are sure to pull it down and dash it into fragments. And they do this, right? And they do this entire thing because directly you reward a benefactor or a public servant. You distrust him merely because he is rewarded. Okay, so here we have some cause and effects that we do need to check here. Okay. So why do you change often? Because you reward a benefactor or a public servant. You distrust him merely because he is rewarded. Okay, I think it's talking about the same thing, right? What does it mean, rewarded? And immediately apply to find out. Okay, so I mean, we do know what a public servant is, right? So so public servants. What Charles Dickens is trying to say is this. It changed so often. Why? Because they pay public servants. Well, okay, that doesn't explain anything. Does that mean they don't want to pay them? I mean, don't think. It's probably going to explain later if you do need to know this. But for now, yeah. They just distrust them because he's rewarded, and maybe they don't like that, right? And immediately apply yourselves to find out either that you have been too bountiful in your acknowledgments, or he remiss in his deserts. Okay, so they find out that you've been too bountiful, plentiful in your acknowledgments. You acknowledge them too much, right? Like you elected him as your local representative, and now you're paying him, and now I acknowledged him too much, right? And they're like, okay, kill that guy now, right? All right, so let's take a look. Any man who attains a high place among you from the president downwards may date his downfall from that moment. Wait, what is that moment? That moment when they get elected, I guess, right? So as soon as you get elected, right? As soon as you hold that place, right? You should see your demise coming, right? Because people start to hate you now that they've elected you. Right? For any printed lie. Okay, so this is the cause, right? So why does this happen, right? Why does this happen? Because any printed lie that any notorious villain pens, although it militate directly against the character and conduct of a life, appeals to your distrust. Oh, okay. So ironically, they don't trust anybody, but they trust lies, right? They like lies, right? They take in lies and is believed. Right, so they believe lies. You will strain at a gnat in the way of trust trustfulness and confidence, however fairly won and well-deserved, but you will swallow a whole caravan of camels if they be laden with unworthy doubts and mean suspicions, right? Okay, so they don't treat, what is that? Trustfulness and confidence, but they like lies, right? They have an appetite for lies. Whole caravan of camels of lies, right? Is this well, think you, or likely to elevate the character of the governors or the governed among you? Okay, so this is what a stranger asks to the American, right? Hey, you're doing all these crazy things. Do you think this is gonna help you? Right? That's the question, right? Do you think this is good for you? Believing all the lies and changing so fast, you know? And then the answer is what? The answer is invariably the same. There's freedom of opinion here, you know. Okay? Sounds like an American. You know, every man thinks for himself, and we are not to be easily overreached. That's how our people come to be suspicious. Oh, okay. You know, so yeah, they just say, well, you know, it's not necessarily because of that. It's because we have freedom of opinion, you know, and everybody has their own thought. That's why we're suspicious. That's how Americans answer. So they do not recognize the problem. You know what I mean? So he's saying they have an appetite for lies. They don't like their elected officials. They repelled all the worthy men from their assemblies, and they got only men who disgraced their institutions, right? So all of those bad things happen because of their tendency for universal distrust, right? And then when you tell this to an American, that American just says, yeah, it's because of freedom of opinion. They don't recognize the problem. Good? Okay, so let's take a look at the questions. One central idea. Okay, so I think this is the first time we're doing this kind of question. One central idea. Okay, so notice that it said one central idea. Did it say the central idea? Would that be different? The central idea versus one central idea. Would that be different? Yeah, that would be different. If it says the central idea, that would just be one possible answer. The most dominant point that the passage as a whole is trying to make. That would be the central idea. But what about one central idea? Potentially, it could be anything, as long as it's a point. Wouldn't you agree? Okay, so as long as it's a point, it can be an answer, right? So what does that mean? So it means if you get a one central idea question, you can just do a true-false test. You don't necessarily need to think about, well, that's true, but you know, that's not the main thing, right? Your answer, so you're going to get 3 false answer choices, is what I mean. You're only gonna get one true answer. So it is relatively a lot easier than the central idea, right? That would be more restrictive. Okay, so let's take a look. Wariness of their elected representatives. Did they have wariness of their elected representatives? I guess this is talking about Americans. So if we assume that, yeah, it was there, right? They don't like their elected representatives. They're very, they want to crush them kind of thing. Has led to poor judgment on the part of citizens. Yeah, you know, yeah, we talked about that. By repelling men from the, repelling worthy men from the office, they elected men who disgraced their institutions. And to inferior candidates, okay, that's good. So I think this is good, right? So that's, you can just choose this and move on. It's okay. Why? Because it's a one central idea question. The other ones are going to be false. You want to take a look? Distrust of both their fellow citizens and foreigners. Okay, so since it said universal, distrust, you can just let this go, I guess. Means that Americans will remain insular and, well, no. Really? Well, first of all, this is deducing a significance, right? Means that, right? So the significance of universal distrust is that Americans will remain this. So it's this prediction? No, it's way too much, right? Too many logical leaps here. C, perceptiveness and independence have enabled Americans to be astute judges. No, this would be saying they're really good judges of their elected officials. But the passage suggests that they make bad decisions, not good decisions. So this one is false. Suspiciousness of their politicians. Okay, so that one does exist. Has undermined the government. Okay, that's good. And contributed to widespread instability. No. Nope. Widespread instability? No. They might be doing pretty well. Was no mention of widespread instability. Okay, so let's take a look. Over the course of the passage, main focus shifts from. Okay, so I don't think we ever talked about shift questions either. Okay, so how are you going to do a shift question? Okay, let's say, for example. Okay, so let me tell you this. Okay, so let's say, for example, you read the passage. This passage boils down to, I think, like about 4 parts. I'll say. Okay, let's say it talks about this idea first, and then this idea, and then this idea, and then that. Okay, so let's say it's like a 4-part thing. So now you go to the question, and then the question asks you, what's the main focus? The focus shifts from. Okay, so if you look at answer choice A, it says 1 to 2. Okay, and then B says 2 to 4, okay? C says 1 to 4, okay? And D says 3 to 4. Okay, what's our answer? What's the answer? Matthew, what's the answer?
I think it's C.
Who else thinks it's C? Okay, a lot of people think it's C. Okay, the answer is all of them are okay. Okay, so why did I bother talking about this? Well, exactly this point. Don't have expectations when it's talking about shift questions. Okay, that will get you the question wrong. Okay, don't have any expectations, and so don't make a decision on what's the main. Okay, so don't think about this. Don't think about it. It's just look at the shift. Okay, so as long as the order is correct, that answer will be good. Okay? So it doesn't really matter. I can say 1 to 2, I can say 2 to 4, I can say 1 to 4, I can say 3 to 4. It doesn't really matter. As long as you got the order down, it's okay. Okay? But what would not be okay? So if I get this wrong, for example, if I say not 1 to 2, but if I say 2 to 1, then that's wrong. Okay? What else would be wrong? If I say something like 5, something that doesn't exist in the passage, then that's wrong. Okay? Those are the only possible wrong answer choices. Something that's not mentioned, which is false, or you get the order wrong. Okay? So if it's mentioned, if it exists, and you get they get the order right, it's the answer. Okay? So look at it with an open mind, all right? So let's take a look at A. So it says, defending Americans against the charge of being uncultivated. Really? Okay, well, first of all, then there needs to be some kind of charge. That charge means someone calls the Americans uncultivated, right? So I don't have this. right? Why? Because if I had that kind of charge, I would have boxed that group's name, right? It's what we do when we have a point of view, right? But we didn't have that, so A is gone. What about B? Describing particular kindnesses. All right, so those of you who chose this answer, you really haven't thought about this answer choice. You didn't really think about what this means. That's why, okay? You just thought 얼렁뚱땅. Again, that's important, okay? Just don't say like, oh, you know, it's a positive word, this is a positive word, it's good. No, think about what this actually means. Okay, so what if I tell you, okay, Ujuna, if I tell you to describe a particular kindness your mom has performed for you. Yeah, describe a particular kindness. One, your mom, for you. You can't do one?
Can't think of the top of my head.
Really? I'm gonna tell your mom.
Oh, please no.
You can't tell me one particular kindness your mom performed for you? One?
Buying me food.
Okay. Yes, she did. Okay, Matthew, describe one particular kindness. Yep.
She sent me her.
Okay. Okay. Yeah, yeah. Okay, let me ask you this. What did Americans do for Charles Dickens? Nothing. It's not there. It's not there. They talked about the paragraph talked about the Americans' qualities, but did it say like, oh, the Americans bought me a drink, right? Like, did they say that? Something like that? No, they never described particular kindnesses. The reason you chose this is you just zoned this out. You zone this word out, and then you see this, and you're like, oh, you know, I think I remember words that correspond to this. That's why you got it wrong. Okay. So what's the lesson learned here? You need to, when you see an answer choice, usually this is what happens. Okay. Okay, I'm not saying all the time, but when you get questions wrong, it's usually something like this. So you look at an answer choice, and this one is obviously wrong. So it should be a full bar, but you're missing, like there's a lot of bad parts in the bar. The answer you're looking for is this bar, say, but you look at A and you see some black areas. What happens is you just remember this part that you saw in the passage, and you just fill in the blanks yourself. Your subconscious mind fills in the blanks for the answer choice. That's what happened here. And you disregarded this part, which shouldn't happen, okay? So, well, what's the solution? Okay, when you're reading an answer choice, you need to make a conscious effort, especially for these structure questions, okay? So structure or a little bit more abstract questions. When you're doing this, you need to step back, okay? Forget about the passage for a second. Just think about the answer choice itself and ask yourself, okay, so what does this mean exactly? Think about the exact meaning of this, right? If you just thought about what particular kindnesses are, you would not have chosen this. You know what I mean, right? Okay, so leave this. C says, discussing the tendency of nations to take pride in their flaws. Did that happen? Yeah. Every national character, right, takes pride in their faults. That's what they said. So this is okay. What about this? To recommending that Americans view themselves more critically. Do they view themselves more critically? No, they do the opposite of this, which is troubling, right? They don't look at themselves critically, right? So this one is not the answer. So it would be D. So I just want to look at D. Praising admirable qualities identified with Americans. There we go, right? So this happened. This definitely did happen with that positive part. To expressing concern about certain objectionable American traits. Yeah, universal distrust, jealousy, right? So those of you who chose B, did you look at D? Okay, it's not a rhetorical question, it's an honest question. So those of you who chose B, did you take a look at D, or did you not even look at D and choose B? Were you debating between B and D, or did you just... Okay, so who chose B? Raise your hand. Okay. Sungwoo, did you see D? Oh, you didn't. You didn't read it? Okay. Matthew?
I was in a rush, so
Oh, you were in a rush. Okay. Hongyun.
I didn't read.
Huh?
I didn't read. I just chose.
You didn't read the passage?
No,
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So a lot of you were rushing, and that's actually what they're trying to do also, because a lot of students do the history passage last. Okay. So and when you're doing the history passage last, they know you're going to do this type of question towards the end also. You're going to do like the vocabulary and context questions first, right? If you're smart enough, right? And you would do this. Would you do this or this? Of course, you would do this first, right? Okay, so is there a question though that you guys wanted to go over for this passage, for the Charles Dickens passage? 37. Okay, let's take a look at 37 first, and then we'll go over other ones if we have more. Okay, so it's he suggests. Okay, he suggests that. Okay, so you need to know that we could do a little bit of jump. It doesn't have to be like a verbatim rephrasing thing. You know what I mean? Okay, tendency towards suspicion exhibited by many Americans is especially problematic. Okay, so why is it problematic? And then he's saying, so basically it's asking for a cause, right? So, your first instinct could be this. I'm gonna go look for that cause and effect. But at the same time, you should think, okay, it's a suggest question, right? So he maybe didn't mention this cause and effect directly. Maybe he planted it a little bit. So don't be too stuck with this cause and effect here, okay? Because of that suggests wording, okay? So what should we do, okay? Well, let's go back. Say this part was talking about the good qualities. I'm gonna move on, and then this one. Wait. The question was, it's problematic because, right? Tendency for suspicion is problematic because. Why is it problematic? Okay, so I need to go to that part where universal distrust is mentioned, at least, right? So starting from here, right? Suspiciously, blah blah blah, and will often adduce it in spite of his own reason as this. So this part is just explaining universal distrust, saying, yeah, they think they're smart, right? But it doesn't state the reason why this is bad, right? Why is this bad? Why is this bad? Just ask yourself, okay, why do you say it's bad? Why do you say it's bad? Why do you say it's bad? Okay, so take a look. By repelling worthy men from your legislative assemblies, it has bred up a class of suffrage who disgrace your institutions. Huh. People's choice. Okay, so this could, potentially you could think to yourself, this could potentially be an answer, right? Because if you guys, because you brought jealousy and distrust into the transaction of public life, it bred up a class of candidates for the suffrage who suck, right? Who disgrace your institutions, right? So this could be one. It has rendered you so fickle and so given to change that your inconstancy is passed into a proverb, blah, blah, blah. You distrust him. Okay? I mean, this is probably the only reason. Okay? So this is one way to go about it. Okay? You going back, like before you take a look at the answer choices, you go back to the passage itself since it doesn't have a line reference, and you just recapping the possibilities. Okay? And then you go to the answer choice. If you're, I would suggest you do this if you're a little bit more less confident about that particular subject. Okay? If you're a little bit more confident, then you can just jump straight into a process of elimination. Because, okay, if you look at the next question, it doesn't have a line reference question. So you're just on your own. Okay? So why is it problematic? So let's rely on what you have. Okay? So believe in yourself. Believe that you have most of what the passage says. I mean, you may not have it perfectly, but you do have the gist of it. Okay. So A says causes people to be distrustful of their neighbors. Okay. You need to know that this is not mentioned. Neighbors and acquaintances. Okay. So did anybody choose A? No one. Okay. Good. Right? So this is simply just not mentioned. So A is one of those answer choices that you need to be able to eliminate with confidence. Okay? And how do you know? Okay, so this is actually what it boils down to. Okay? If you read the passage, okay? If you read the passage and if you had 100% certainty that you accounted for every single idea, when you see an irrelevant answer choice like this, you can eliminate this answer choice, right? But what if you have a 95% chance? If you have a 95% chance, yeah, chances are you might be able to kind of hesitate because there's that 5% uncertainty, right? You didn't account for 5% of the passage or you didn't understand it, so you're kind of worried. So if you say neighbors and acquaintances, what people usually do is they have the urge to go back to the passage and check because there's that uncertainty. Right? What I'm saying, suppress that, right? First of all. But if you go below a certain number, let's say, for example, you didn't account for 20% or more of the passage, then you can't eliminate this because there's so much uncertainty in your head in terms of the passage, right? So you should be able to do this. So if you can't eliminate answer choice A, what I'm telling you is you should practice reading. You should focus on reading the passage more, practicing reading the passage. Okay, accounting for every single idea. Slow down more. Okay. Now it's not a question about time. If you can't do that, if you can't eliminate irrelevant answer choices, I mean the tricky ones, fine. Tricky ones will think about it, but I'm talking about the really irrelevant ones. Right. What about B? Emboldens people to challenge each other's judgments. So that's why it's such a big problem. Challenge each other's judgments. I mean, just leave it. I mean, if you want, just leave it, because I mean, they think. I mean, the passage kind of suggested that everyone's like, they think they're smart. They have their own opinion, whatever, blah blah blah. So I mean, just leave it if you're too unsure of it. What about C? Invites people to act with too great a degree of... Was he really complaining that there's too much independence? So this one is irrelevant that you need to get rid of. What about D? Encourages people to act against their best interests. All right, so that one you can choose right away. You should be able to choose this. Why? What's in their best interest? Not having people who disgrace their institutions in public offices. Isn't that by definition what, disgrace your institution means? That you don't want those people there, but they're there, right? So it will be D. Another one. No? No more? Yeah.
40.
Implies that political leaders are often... Okay, political leaders. So, this one feels like I should have a line reference question, but I don't think it does, right? Does it? Oh, it does. Okay, so then it's even better. Political leaders, right? So this is our key term here. So what are you going to do? You're just going to go to 41, going to find an answer choice with political leaders physically present. Okay? So why don't we go to 39 to 43? 39, 43, it says by repel, this one was the part that talks about the political candidates, right? Political leaders. So what does it talk about the political leaders? It says worthy men, they're repelled, right? So they're not in the house anymore. The worthy men left, and who's in? The ones who disgrace your institution, they're the ones who are in, right? So that's the thing I know about answer choice 40. I mean, that's answer choice A, right? Did you choose this? Okay. Did you choose A for 41? Yeah? Yeah. Okay, then for 40, what did you choose? 40, what did you choose? Huh? A? Okay. Okay, then you read the passage wrong, okay? Because what's the information that we get here? The information that we get here is that worthy men, right? Worthy men repelled, right? They don't belong in the office anymore, right? And what else? Like the ones who disgrace institution, right? These are the ones who belong in, not belong. These are the ones who are in office right now. That's the only thing. What does it say about unresponsive? What can you say is unresponsive here? Nothing. Be undeserving of the positions they hold? Yeah, probably talking about this then. Too changeable? No, it's not them who's changeable. Well positioned to wield their authority. This has nothing to do with this. This, right? B. Okay, so why don't we go to the zebra passage, passage 3. Let's see how this one plays out. Okay, so the key for this test is not spending too much time on passage 2 and 3. And passage 1 also, actually. But more so passage 2 and 3. Okay, so how your thoughts shouldn't be, I'm gonna get every question right. Your thoughts should be, okay, so but you know, this is something that should happen ultimately. So don't try to rush yourself too much when you're doing the mock test, okay? But ultimately, it shouldn't be just to get the questions right. It should be to get the questions right fast. At least for the social science and first science passage, okay? Usually it's the second science passage that's more difficult, okay? Sometimes it's not, all right? Usually passages 4 and 5 are the most difficult ones, right? Usually it's the history passage, and then you get the more complex science passage, okay? So for those, you want to spend more time. But for passage 2, 3 especially, you should do it quick, all right? Why do zebras have stripes? New study offers strong evidence. Okay, we're done. We know what the passage is going to be like. Can't you already see? Isn't it like really, really obvious? Like the question, is it even hard? is this question even hard? Do zebras have stripes? No. So easy. Zebras have stripes, okay? And what's gonna be the passage? It's gonna be about that new study, right? What about passage 2? Why do zebras have stripes? It's not for camouflage. Okay, well, I mean, it's not giving us much information, but at least I can do this, right? Maybe passage 1, okay, the potentials are endless. Maybe passage 1 suggests it is for camouflage and passage 2 is saying, no, it's not that. I don't know. A lot of possible options. Okay, so let's go to passage 1. It says the question of, yeah, I know what the question is, right? What's the question? Question's obviously going to be, why do zebras have stripes? I mean, that's, well, what is it, right? Five hypotheses. Okay, so hypotheses repel insects. Are you even going to read this? Like, do you expect yourself to memorize all these? Like, if you're even reading this, you're stupid. Because, I mean, what are you? Are you going to remember this by any chance? Like, 5 hypotheses, can you remember this? No, you're going to come back to this regardless. So don't read it then. Just go on, right? 5 hypotheses, okay? And then it says, for the first time, scientists play all these theories against each other in a statistical model. Okay, so I guess this is the new study. I mean, this is my guess so far. And the result was pretty much, well, black and white. Okay, this writer trying to be cute, black and white. But I don't know the result yet, right? We found again and again and again, the only factor which is highly associated with striping is to ban biting flies. Okay, it gave us the result right away. I mean, you can say this is the result or you can say this is the significance, but whatever, this is our answer that we need, right? Ban biting flies. That's pretty much their bottom line, okay? Said study leader Tim Carroll, biologist at the University of California, Davis. For the study, Carroll and his colleagues collected data from a vast range of sources. So this is process, right? All right, so the study is a statistical model, right? So when you get something like this, they could potentially ask you in the questions. Why? Because it's not a traditional thing, right? What's the traditional thing to do? They have a control group, experiment group, or they do like an observation study. That's something that usually happens. But when they do this, they can potentially ask you about this. So that's why I like to mark the process when it comes to a little bit, something a little bit more unique, okay? So they looked at all of these. And then it says, first the team looked at variations in striping patterns across the 7 living species of the equid group. All right, so just process. Also noted where the stripe occurred. Team then mapped. All right, I couldn't care less. Data was then entered. It skipped a lot, right? If you're reading this, no, you made the wrong decision. That's the wrong call, okay? So it's all process, whatever, right? I mean, I'll read it later if I have to, if the question asks me to, if the question tells me to do it, but not yet. Results showed that the range of striped species overlaps with where biting flies are most active. Okay, so this is a correlation, right? Biting flies, if the biting flies, there's a spot where the biting flies are most active, right? And range of striped species overlap with that, right? So there's a correlation between this and this, right? And then it says Brenda L. Huh. Now, okay, so that's a person that I haven't seen, right? Blah, blah, blah. Studies stripes and plain zebra, said the study's approach is broad brush and that more specific research may be needed. Okay, so this is why she disagrees, right? She disagrees, right? I mean, it didn't say overtly, but she doesn't agree, right? And what does she have to say? She says, yeah, you need to be more specific, right? So this is what I'm going to note. That's why the story is likely to be much more complex. Okay, so this is an incomplete, actually. You guys remember this? Incomplete. Unlikely to be the last word on the subject, said L. Well, that's what L said, but anyway, that's an incomplete paragraph. I know that's not what the author said, or that's not what Carol said, but anyway, someone said it, so it is an incomplete ending. All right, so let's look at the second passage. All right, so it's so simple. So what's the first passage? The first passage is so Tim Carroll, right? This guy. Like before this, they were 5 hypotheses, but that, like who cares about this anyway, right? So this person, statistical model, ban biting flies. That's the bottom line, right? They want to do this. That's why they have stripes. That's why zebras have stripes. And then they have this whole, study, right? They go to the museums or whatever, that kind of thing. And then BL has a reaction to that. And what does she say? It needs to be more specific, right? Hey, be more specific. That's what she said, okay? All right, so let's take a look at passage 2. It says, researchers based at the University of California, UCLA, have produced one of the most comprehensive zebra stripe studies. All right, so this one is also talking about single study. So I want to annotate that also, okay? So single study, examining by examining how 29 different environmental variables. All right, so this is probably our process, right? 16 different sites, right? They looked at sites. All right, so that's their study, right? That's their study. I have no idea what they're gonna say. They're probably gonna go against what passage 1 said, right? What did passage 1 say? Ban biting flies. So passage 2 probably says something other than ban biting flies. That's the highest probability. That's most probable, right? The scientists found that the definition of stripes along a zebra's back most closely related with temperature and precipitation. Okay, so I mean, this is the result. Okay, so I don't know what this means just yet, but there's some kind of correlation, right? Temperature, precipitation, and the zebra's environment, right? Like the stripes, right? And did not correlate with the prevalence of lions or tea flies in the region. The findings suggest that, all right, here's the significance, right? This is the most important sentence we've read so far, right? Suggests that torso stripes may do more to help zebras regulate their body, temperature than to avoid predators and tea flies. Okay, so it's not about this. So passage 1 said it was about some flies. It's not. What is it about? Regulate their body temperature. That's our significance, right? And then the next part, it says, this wall we kept hitting up against the wall was, why do zebras have stripes for predation? Other animals have predators, blah, 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 blah. Get bitten by, okay, so this is just elaborating on this, right? It's just saying, yeah, we're right. This is how we got there, right? Next one, wait. Brenda L? Wow, okay, so she has her own study, right? So this is a person who commented on TC's study early on, right? Other animals also need to regulate body temperature or thermoregulate, L points out. But zebras may especially benefit from an extra cooling system because, all right, so good, right? Cause and effect. They digest food much less efficiently than other grazers in, okay, so comparison and cause and effect, right? The comparison is the cause, right? Comparison is the cause, and the extra cooling system is, a benefit from an extra cooling system is the effect, right? So what's this comparison? They digest food much less efficiently than other grazers. So it's other grazers versus zebras, and the standard is efficiency. The efficiency of which they digest food, right? As such, zebras need to spend longer periods of time. Okay, so it's just explaining that. And then next part. The team found that the plain zebras with the most defined torso stripes generally lived in the northern equatorial region. Okay, so this is a little bit detailed information. Those with less defined, okay, so it's most defined and less defined, right? We're more in the southern, so this you should just circle, right? Cooler, this versus this, right? So this versus this, you should be able to recognize. You see that, right? Most defined, northern, equatorial. Less defined, southern, cooler, right? A finding that supports the thermal regulation explanation. Okay, so this also supports this. And then it says the researchers have not experimented. Oh, this is the limit that they're talking about. Is it an incomplete then? That black and white stripes may generate blah, blah, blah. Okay, so this is kind of like an incomplete, right? Saying, you know, we still didn't test it. And then it says, I don't think that you would want to have a lot of black hairs along the top of your back if you wanted to try to keep cool, said TC. What? Oh, they're trashing each other's studies, right? So that's what's happening. Passage 1 is TC's study and BL commenting on that, and passage 2 is vice versa. Okay? So he says it doesn't make any sense. Why would you have more black hairs if you want to keep cool? That doesn't make any sense, right? It's kind of the last color that you would want, right? I mean, he doesn't, it's just, you know, he's just relying on common sense, right? Carol said regions with warmer, wetter climates are particularly susceptible to several species of disease-carrying flies, right? So he's probably going to impose his fly opinion here again, right? Because that's what he said in passage 1, right? Tea flies that considered in their study and that the relationship the research found may actually be a function of fly avoidance. Yeah, you know, that's what we said in passage 1, right? So nothing new, right? But for passage 1, BL didn't explicitly state her view, right? She just said, you guys need to be more specific. She didn't say it's for temperature, right? But this guy, he did talk about his own. All right, so for homework, you guys are gonna do the next exercises for the reading and writing workbook. Okay, you guys know what that is, right? And also bring this test tomorrow. Okay, because we didn't do that last passage. Okay, so we're gonna do that passage tomorrow. Okay, and also remember, okay, last time on Friday I told you guys we're gonna have a review test and vocab test today. So we're doing that. Vocab test is gonna be, one's gonna be cumulative and one's gonna be on the test that you just took. Okay. Okay, any questions? Okay, bye.